Warhammer x LOTM, The Black Emperor by author Jiao Chao Emo Chapter 1-25. Chapter 1. Source Material, Disordered Country. In the darkness, Ning Lu wanted to open his eyes, but his eyelids were heavy, as if glued shut. He vaguely perceived his curled-up body slowly turning in the turbid amniotic fluid, continuing to sleep in a daze. After an unknown period, his perception suddenly became clear. Beyond the amniotic fluid were glass partitions, which were part of an unpainted, silver-gray metal-cased device. The smooth surface of the device had numerous mechanical slots and connection ports. The silver Gothic numeral, 11, was clearly inscribed on the front, and below it, a metal plate bore another line of smaller, exquisitely penned inscription. This was the first time Ning Lu had seen such text. It was unlike any writing he knew, appearing to be a lengthy and complex prayer, used to beseech blessings and support from external powers. Just as he was attempting to decipher it, a surprised voice sounded in his ear. "My lord, the 11th Primarch's senses are very keen, just like the 15th Primarch's." A majestic, thunderous voice rang out. "No, Mikado. I bestowed powerful psychic talent upon the 15th Primarch, but to the 11th Primarch, I gave keen perception and a powerful consciousness. He will possess extraordinary insight, he will be able to keenly pinpoint the enemy's weaknesses and deliver precise and fatal blows. He will be the Grim Reaper on the battlefield, harvesting lives. Open black lens bracket 11th Primarch, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Mikado, close black lens bracket." Ning Lu felt as if struck by lightning, his hazy consciousness instantly clearing. The old man, holding a scepter and appearing frail, radiated dazzling light, but compared to the sun beside him, he was more like a star. His consciousness just touched the sun, and he felt a burning sting. "Sleep. You are still too fragile. It is not yet time for you to serve me." The sun's voice seemed to possess a certain magic. Ning Lu immediately lost all perception of the outside world, as if the entire world consisted only of the gestation pod. His body also slowly turned, facing away from the two speakers, his mind dully thinking. Open black lens bracket I, transmigrated, they are, the Emperor, and Mikado, I became, the 11th Gene Seed Primarch, close black lens bracket. Ning Lu felt his thoughts enter a strange state. He didn't know how long had passed after this sentence fully emerged in his mind. His perception was suddenly liberated again, more accurately, the restraints disappeared. He perceived the presence of the platform, the vibrating metal pillar engines, and other gestation pods. He also perceived another conscious mind, Magnus. Ning Lu sensed that the Emperor and Mikado had left, and he also sensed the surrounding gestation pods and the powerful life forms gestating within them. He also perceived the scientists working at their respective stations beneath the platform. The number, I, was printed on the back of their protective suits. Their gloves were covered in blood, and they were using silver dissection knives to cut open pale organs. Ning Lu had now confirmed that he had transmigrated to the Warhammer world and was a Gene Seed Primarch created by the Emperor for the Great Crusade to conquer the galaxy. Open black lens bracket why did I transmigrate to this cesspool of Warhammer, and as the 11th Gene Seed Primarch who will be purged? Even if I am careful, can I avoid my future fate, close black lens bracket. Just as he thought this, he suddenly felt his body float up, enveloped in black mist. Open black lens bracket how can there be mist in the gestation pod? Are the chaos gods already making their move, close black lens bracket. Immediately, Ning Lu found his consciousness in a world of black mist, boundless and endless. He couldn't feel its edges. Only within 100-meter diameter centered on him was there no black mist, allowing him to see clearly. Open black lens bracket the chaos gods aren't supposed to just pull my consciousness, they're supposed to drag all the Gene Seed Primarchs away and scatter them across various worlds in the galaxy, close black lens bracket. During the process of creating the Gene Seed Primarchs, the Emperor made a deal with the Chaos Gods, agreeing that half of the Gene Seed Primarchs would belong to the warp deities. His heart was solely for humanity, unconstrained by morality, so he naturally intended to break the agreement. However, the Chaos Gods would not allow him to renege, and thus created a warp storm in the laboratory, scattering the 20 gene seed Primarchs to different worlds across the galaxy. As Ning Lu wondered, a massive stream of information was suddenly poured into his mind. In the past, his head would have surely exploded, but now his superhuman brain was processing the information at lightning speed. Open black lens bracket. I am currently in the disordered country. The source material, in order to evolve, chose me and brought me to the Warhammer world. Close black lens bracket. Ning Lu suddenly remembered that before transmigrating, as a fan of Lord of the Mysteries, he participated in the crowdfunding for the Blasphemy slate. After excitedly tearing open the package, he found a mysterious prize, then was enveloped by black mist and lost consciousness. At the same time, Magnus's consciousness stirred, spreading out in confusion, but found no anomaly when it swept past the 11th gene seed Primarch's gestation pod. After pausing for a moment, sensing that he seemed to be asleep, he withdrew his consciousness. Ning Lu looked ahead at a massive stone slab. He precisely sensed that the slab was 22 meters wide and 10 meters high. With a thought, he arrived before the gray stone slab. The disordered country had just poured a vast amount of knowledge about the extraordinary domain into him. He knew that the slab recorded the potion formulas for 22 pathways. A pathway is a sequence chain that steadily progresses and grows step by step. For mortals to gain extraordinary power, they must consume a sequence 9 potion to become an extraordinary being. The lower the sequence number, the higher the potion quality. Sequence 9 to sequence 0 is also a path to godhood. As the one bearing the identity and destiny of the disordered country's master, he must follow the Black Emperor pathway. Therefore, the Blasphemy slate currently only has the sequence 9 inches lawyer potion formula, with subsequent sequences and other pathway potion formulas to be gradually unlocked. Sequence 9 inches lawyer potion formula. Main ingredients: 1100 m of wire grass, 1 chemical dog tongue. Auxiliary ingredients: 1100 ml of black ros fuerte, 1 thorn crystal plant, 1 hive giant rat. Extraordinary abilities. Ning Lu knew from the extraordinary knowledge that the potion ingredients on the Blasphemy slate were different from those in his memory, but rather materials from the Warhammer world that contained similar extraordinary characteristics. Fortunately, each material had an image, so he wouldn't mistake them. He also noticed that among the potion ingredients, the hive giant rat and thorn crystal glowed faintly, while the other 3 were dim. Black ros fuerte. Seeing the liquor that resembled black vodka, he immediately recalled that it was a local specialty of the industrial world of Vostonia. The chemical dog was also unrelated to the Savlar Chem dogs, it was a canid brought by Vostonia's first settlers. Open black lens bracket. I am currently in a laboratory on Terra. There are hive giant rats and thorn crystals in the hive city, which is why they glow on the Blasphemy slate. The other 3 potion ingredients are not present, so they are dim. This is quite convenient, at least it lets me know if the potion ingredients exist in the current world. To become a lawyer, I will have to make a trip to Vostonia. Close black lens bracket. Ning Lu decided to return to his body, thinking that the Emperor might return to the laboratory at any moment. His body quickly grew heavy, the black mist disappeared, and he returned to the gestation pod. Ning Lu felt a wave of fatigue and immediately fell into a lethargy. Magnus, sensing an anomaly, spread his consciousness but found nothing, then withdrew it in confusion. For the next few days, he was in and out of sleep, contemplating his plan to use his golden finger to change his fate. Open black lens bracket. Gene seed Primarchs are useful tools for the Emperor. His order to purge the gene seed Primarchs of the 2nd and 11th legions must have been due to an unforgivable sin, either falling to chaos or colluding with Xenos. With my keen senses, I might be thrown into a special world, and during my growth, be corrupted by local culture, unable to eradicate it. To change the fate of being purged, I must start from the gestation pod, close black lens bracket. On the 11th day of his transmigration, he suddenly awoke from his slumber. He felt the Geller field protecting the laboratory suddenly fail, and the energy barrier between the real world and the warp was torn. The source of Warhammer's extraordinary characteristics, i.e., why these materials can be mixed to formulate potions and gain extraordinary abilities, will not be discovered until Ning Lu advances to a high sequence, as it involves the rules of this universe. Part of this will be revealed in Chapter 47. The dispersion of the gene seed Primarchs is, according to the official novel, the head of the heresy, the first step in the Chaos God's plan. The scenes in the gestation pod and after exiting it are also from the situation witnessed by Agaltar in that passage. The translation of gestation pod naturally also adopted the translation from the book. This conflicts with Elda's statement in the Siege of Terra series. I personally believe she did not have the ability to destroy the Emperor's laboratory defenses and throw the gene seed Primarchs into the warp. Legion members will be continuously updated in the related works, those who forget can check it themselves. Chapter 2, The First Step to Changing Destiny. The Emperor betrayed the oath he swore with his blood and promised with his soul. The long-planned reckoning of the Chaos Gods descended, and a multicolored storm engulfed the laboratory. Each gestation pod was pulled into the high heaven by a vortex, flying towards its destined planet. Ning Lu suddenly opened his eyes, thinking to himself, "Open black lens bracket, the first step to changing destiny. Now it depends on whether my cheat is powerful enough." Close black lens bracket. The warp, also known as the Sea of Souls, High Heaven, the immaterial universe, or the realm of chaos, is referred to by different names depending on one's culture. The Sea of Souls is composed of pure energy. It is like a mirror of the real universe, formed by the emotional and spiritual reflections of all sentient beings in the material universe. As Ning Lu opened his eyes, a powerful surge of conviction erupted within him. Open black lens bracket, my destiny is my own to control. Neither the Chaos Gods nor Huang Laohan can decide my fate. I'm going to the Misty Star region, to Vostonia, the main planet of the Vostonia star system. Close black lens bracket. Black mist rose, enveloping him. His strong conviction propelled the black mist to spin faster, and the multicolored vortex was affected, gradually deviating from its preset trajectory. Tzeentch, the Fate Weaver, was the first to notice the change in the threads of destiny. The 11th Primarch had broken free of the vortex and was not falling to his destined place. Change, everything is within the plan. The other three gods then also noticed the strangeness of the gestation pod. They watched with interest until the black mist disappeared. Ning Lu waited nervously. Although he had been chosen by the disordered country, he knew that the authority of the primordial essence gradually increased with his sequence level. In the real world, the disordered country would not offer him much help. But here, in the warp, emotion and conviction were the most potent forces. Ning Lu used conviction as power to leverage the disordered country. Even if the primordial essence's status was lower than that of the Chaos Gods, it was close to the same level. Their combined effort might change the planet he would fall on. This was his first step towards changing his destiny. While the gestation pods of the other gene seed Primarchs were still sliding in the Sea of Souls, the 11th Primarch's gestation pod shot out of the high heaven like an arrow. The gestation pod plummeted rapidly. Through the blinding smoke ignited by the intense friction with industrial exhaust, Ning Lu saw the hive city piercing the toxic atmosphere, which eased his mind slightly. Immediately, the gestation pod smashed into a viscous, muddy river channel. The silver-gray shell shook, and the glass partition shattered. Ning Lu stood steadily inside the pod. He suddenly extended his right hand and precisely grasped a silver-gray fragment, about the length of an adult's palm and 2 fingers wide. The rapidly spinning and sliding mud did not affect his perception. He noticed the absence of any living creatures or plants in the river or along its banks, and he smelled the pervasive toxic, acidic odor. Ning Lu's head spun for a moment, then quickly recovered. The gestation pod's rotation slowed. Ning Lu's brain rapidly completed calculations, and just before it hit the bank and bounced in another direction, he leapt out. With a slight bend of his knees, he steadied himself. Ning Lu stood up, looked towards the hive city through the swirling industrial dust, and then began walking in that direction. In the shantytown on the outskirts of the hive city, people who had lived unprotected for a long time had more or less some physical mutations. Many residents of the bottom nest also came to live in the shantytown. The foul sewage ensured a relatively fertile agricultural environment and abundant fungal harvests. A man with a stony growth on his neck was the first to notice the outsider. It was an outsider who shouldn't have been in the shantytown. His skin was a healthy, natural yellow, gleaming as if he were a statue by an artist. His long black hair fluttered in the wind, his eyes were as dark as ink, like a deep pool, and his nose bridge was high. Although he appeared to be only a 4 or 5-year-old boy, the Gene-Seed Primarch's face was sharply defined, and his handsome features possessed an inherent sense of majesty that made people afraid to look directly at him. The mutant lowered his head, feeling both inferior and timid, then a glint of greed flashed in his eyes. Such a boy could fetch a lot of money. Many important figures in the upper nest enjoyed toying with such tender-skinned children. Once such a thought arose, it was impossible to suppress. He immediately dropped the fungi he had picked up and pounced on the boy. Several other mutants also moved with the same intention. The boy did not turn and flee. He dodged a swinging club, and the silver-gray fragment in his hand slashed the mutant's thigh. With a scream, all the mutants in the shantytown were drawn to the scene. They greedily pounced on the boy. Ning Lu weaved through the crowd of mutants. No one's attack landed on the boy. The mutants initially thought it was because the boy was small, so they all half-crouched. Having regularly engaged in cultivating fungi, sifting through garbage piles, and ambushing vagrants, they were familiar with this posture and often fought in this stance when scrambling for spoils. Their attacks still missed. The boy seemed to anticipate their every move. Side thrusts, iron rods thrown at the back of his head, all intentions failed. The boy did not look back, as if he had eyes in the back of his head. An hour later, a group of people lay on the ground in the shantytown, each with their legs severed, unable to move. Ning Lu's gaze searched among the people, then he stripped off the cleanest, most intact clothes, casually cut them, and put them on. He then walked over to the mutant with the growth on his neck, kicked him, opened his mouth, and then pointed at the iron rod on the ground. The mutant stared in horror at the monster before him. After several seconds, he realized that the other party was asking what this thing was called, and he quickly opened his mouth. Ning Lu's superhuman brain rapidly mastered the local Low Gothic language at an astonishing speed. It was a localized version of ancient Terra's Slavic language. 5 hours later, he had learned the basic language from these people. Ning Lu gazed at the remaining living mutants and fluently asked in the local Low Gothic, "Is this world Vostonia?" All the mutants nodded simultaneously, fearing that a moment's delay would lead to the fate of the corpses beside them. He pointed to the hive city not far away. "Is that hive city Tezvok?" The mutants again nodded quickly and simultaneously. Ning Lu stepped forward, casually ending the mutants' suffering. These witnesses who had seen him come from the ash wasteland to the hive city might cause him trouble if they lived. He knew that since Vostonia pledged allegiance to Mars during the Age of Strife, technology and knowledge had continuously flowed in, rapidly developing it into a highly industrialized world. Locally manufactured weapons were excellent, especially the laser guns, which were most famous. In the future, the Vostonia Firstborn's combat strength would rank among the top 10 in the Astra Militarum. Vostonia was locally ruled by a dual system of nobles and the Mechanicus. The weapons held by the oil boys could still cause trouble for his growing self. Ning Lu found a relatively clean black backpack, though by lower nest standards, it was still filthy. He filled the backpack with fungi and also put in a tattered piece of clothing to change into. Then he walked towards the hive city. He had checked once before, and all the potion ingredients for the lawyer on the profane slate were glowing, meaning all materials could be found in the hive city. Chapter 3: Incorporating a Gang. Moments later, Ning Lu found an abandoned sewage pipe on the outskirts of Tezvok, amidst a mountain of garbage. Hive cities develop from the bottom up. When humans first settle on a planet, they establish settlements on the ground, then expand upwards over long periods of time. Due to population migration and other reasons, most facilities in the bottom nest have been abandoned. He crawled into the pipe, wading through the sludge formed by industrial wastewater. Ning Lu walked through the sewage pipe, which was wide enough for 5 people. After a kilometer, his ears twitched, and the sound waves he captured outlined a scene of hundreds of people fighting in his mind. He continued forward for several hundred meters, and his hearing outlined a scene of a chase, one person pursuing another. A scream abruptly rang out, the person fleeing in front tripped and fell, followed by another scream, and the pursuer also fell. Ning Lu listened intently. Besides the two, he heard no other living sounds. How did both of them fall? Moments later, he arrived at the scene. Both individuals were already dead in the sewage. Even in the dim environment, he could clearly see their abnormalities. Their shoes were tattered, and their feet were bloody and mangled, caused by hundreds of thousands of crisscrossing wounds. Ning Lu scanned his surroundings and keenly discovered crystal clusters in a corner of the murky sewage. Open black lens bracket. Not a living creature, but thorn crystal, close black lens bracket. Ning Lu knew that thorn crystal appeared in Hive City sewage pools, drainage pipes, and other places where pollutants had accumulated over generations. It was less a plant and more a mineral stock, similar to coral, composed of fragile and sharp, dense crystal clusters. Fools who fell into thorn crystal would quickly discover its terror. Its sharp crystals would inflict thousands of tiny but extremely painful wounds. The greatest danger came from the toxins and chemical corrosives on the crystals, which, upon entering a wound, would turn the smallest abrasion into severe suppuration and ulceration, leading to death if left untreated. Sadly, most of the populace in the lower nest and bottom nest lacked medical supplies, so stepping on it meant a swift end to their miserable lives. Open black lens bracket. I found a supplementary material so quickly, close black lens bracket. Ning Lu bent down and searched in the sewage, quickly finding 2 complete crystal clusters. He took out spare clothes from his backpack, wrapped one thorn crystal in his shirt and the other in his pants, and placed them in his backpack. Ning Lu was in a good mood and continued forward. Several passages converged, and he saw a platform. On the platform, 2 gangs attacked each other around a forge, using laser guns made from scrap materials. On the left side of the platform, the leader of a group with red cloth tied around their heads, after raising his hand and taking down an enemy with a scrap laser pistol, rolled to dodge an attack, and suddenly his eyes lit up. He saw a boy who did not belong in the bottom nest. His ragged clothes could not conceal his handsome face. He was more valuable than this forge. He immediately rushed towards Ning Lu, reaching out to grab him. "Kid, come here." Ning Lu moved his body to the side, and the gang leader grabbed at empty air. The moment the opponent lost his balance, the boy grabbed his wrist, pulled him forward, and then plunged a silver-gray shard into his abdomen. He found 5 power cells on the corpse and stuffed them into his clothing pockets. Mutants had dozens of pockets sewn with different colored scraps on their clothes to store the treasures they found. The Gene Seed Primarch then picked up the laser pistol, assembled from various parts. As soon as the gun was in his hand, he skillfully checked the power cell. Open black lens bracket. The gangs of Vostonia are more skilled than those on other planets. The laser pistols made from scrap materials are above average, capable of firing 23 times in total, and can still fire 17 times, close black lens bracket. Ning Lu roared, "Stop." Although he was still a boy, his voice held no trace of childishness. The 2 warring factions only heard a reprimand, like the cold rebuke of an arbitrator who occasionally visited the bottom nest. Their bodies trembled, and they all turned to look. When they saw Ning Lu, their eyes lit up. On the right side of the platform, the gang leader, who had poked his head out, spat. "When is it your turn, kid?" Before he could finish speaking, a bright beam shot through the vital spot between his eyes, and his corpse fell to the ground. Both factions were greatly astonished. The distance between the boy and the leader exceeded 30 meters, which was far beyond the maximum range of a scrap laser pistol. It was incredible that he could accurately kill the leader. On the left side of the platform, several sharp-eyed individuals noticed that the gun the boy was using belonged to their leader, whose corpse lay at the entrance to the passage. "The boss is dead." The shout startled the members of both gangs, and immediately several people's eyes gleamed. They were all gang leaders, and now that the boss was dead, the opportunity to rise had come. They immediately turned their guns and attacked their competitors. As for the boy, no matter how powerful he was just a child. As long as they became the boss, they could always capture him through a group attack. Ning Lu was ready to roll and dodge, but he unexpectedly found them even more foolish than he had imagined. He immediately sprang into action. Since these people had encountered him, they would be the foundation for his conquest of Vostonia, and now was the time to establish his authority. I said, "Stop." As Ning Lu spoke, he raised his hand and fired 3 consecutive shots, killing 3 members of the gang on the left side of the platform, while 2 others were ambushed and killed by their competitors. He then dealt with the victor of the other gang and looked at the crowd. "From now on, I am your boss. Anyone who disobeys will meet the same fate as them." The gang members were all terrified, they dared not move. They had never seen such precise marksmanship, continuous firing, 1 shot, 1 kill, they had never even heard of it. Thus, on his first day in Vostonia, Ning Lu formed his own gang, with 310 subordinates. When Ning Lu poured all the fungi from his backpack into the large vat, all the gang members' eyes glowed green. If not for their fear of his precise marksmanship, they would have pounced like hungry wolves. Ning Lu stood on the platform, looking down at the crowd below. Knowing that the bottom nest inhabitants were uneducated, he spoke in the simplest, most straightforward language. "I will not mistreat those who follow me, but I also do not keep useless people. How much you get depends on your own ability. Soup or dregs, it's up to you." He scanned the crowd, seeing that most people craned their necks and stared wide-eyed at their own feet, with only a few still scratching their heads. "Now I have questions to ask. Those who can answer will get to drink the soup. First question, where are there giant rats nearby, over 1 meter in length? The better the quality of the magic potion ingredients, the better the effect after consumption." Ning Lu was not afraid of them knowing the magic potion formula, he only needed to ask about 2 types. Me, the quickest to react was a scrawny bald man. "Boss, giant rats are everywhere nearby, and there are many over 1 meter long. I can't give you a number, but there are many in every tunnel and pipe." Ning Lu looked down at the crowd. No one refuted him, they all showed expressions of regret and anger. "Very good, you can come up and scoop a spoonful first." The bald man immediately ran wildly, stumbling and almost falling when he got onto the platform. He supported himself with his left hand, immediately got up, and as if afraid the boss would change his mind, he scooped a full spoon. Smelling the aroma, he impatiently squatted nearby, licking the soup. Everyone else looked enviously at the quick-reacting bald man, straining their ears, waiting for the boss to ask the next question. Second question, who knows where to find wiregrass? Chapter 4, Occupying the Foundry. The gang members, ready to answer, looked bewildered. Only one man, his face grimy, raised his bionic hands. "Boss, I know. There's a foundry in the lower nest that was once personally managed by tech priests serving Mars. The factory is surrounded by a deadly organic wiregrass. It's incredibly tough, even a knife can't cut it, and if you throw a grenade next to it, it can regenerate after the explosion. Its sharp thorns can pierce armor and cause bone-deep wounds, and it secretes an acidic sap that can corrode anyone trapped in it into a skeleton within minutes." He nervously clutched the spoon and basin in his hands. "Boss, that's all I know. Your information is useful. You can have 2 scoops of soup. You may start serving yourself." Hearing Ning Lu speak, the man with the grimy face quickly went to the large pot. After scooping 2 portions, he tightly gripped the yellowish-green aluminum basin. Just as he was about to go aside to enjoy it, he heard his boss's voice again. "You seem to know that factory well. Can you provide me with more information about it?" "Boss, my name is Rolslev. I used to work at that weapon foundry, designated D46, as a shift leader for a furnace crew. Before the tech priests abandoned the factory and moved to the upper nest, life was tough, but manageable. Ever since, Vulture, of the Scavenger Gang, took control of the factory. He's lived up to his nickname, squeezing everyone to their limits. After Ning Lu inquired about the D-46 from Rolslev, he decided to capture this weapon foundry. Lower Nest, D-46 Foundry, brightly lit. Vulture leaned back in his chair, mockingly watching the foreman who was constantly pleading before him. Lord Vulture, those are children. If they keep working like this, they'll die. I'm willing to work 3 more hours a day, I'm much faster than them. Oh really? Then you can work 4 more hours a day, Vulture said mockingly. As for them, they will continue to work. Vulture didn't notice a flash on the video screen behind him, showing a figure charging forward at extreme speed. A 2-meter diameter rubber tire crashed into the wire grass covered with countless sharp thorns. Ning Lu squeezed through the hollowed-out rubber tire, and with a wave of his right hand, silver-gray fragments precisely cut the center point between 2 thorns. Someone, 2 members of the Scavenger Gang, holding laser guns were patrolling nearby. He heard the sound and quickly ran over. Ning Lu reinserted the fragments into his waist. His gloved hands simultaneously gripped both ends of the wire grass, and the seeping acidic sap immediately corroded a hole in the gloves. The Gene Seed Primarch immediately sensed the small hole in his palm. His hand slightly bent, forming an angle, with the hollow part in the middle precisely where the hole was. He charged forward swiftly, then flung the wire grass towards the 2 approaching men. The sharp thorns accurately pierced the backs of the hands of the 2 men raising their guns to shoot. They let out a painful scream, and in an instant, their hands were corroded to mere bones by the sap. Ning Lu picked up a dropped laser gun and retrieved 12 energy cells from the 2 corpses. He fired a shot into the air, a signal for his subordinates, then rushed towards the control room. Vulture watched on screen after screen as his useless subordinates were killed by the boy. Useless. You're all useless. Vulture stood up abruptly, grabbed his chainsword, and amidst its roar, the sound of kill, kill, kill once again echoed in his ears. Vulture strode out of the control room, leapt over the railing, and slashed towards the boy. His eyes were blood red. He felt as if he was back to that day when he killed the gang leader and 7 guards, and the same bloody color rose in his eyes. Afterward, he found himself taller and stronger. He didn't know what had happened, he only knew that killing made him stronger. Ning Lu had just raised his hand to kill a gang member when he felt an enemy charging at him from above. As he rolled backward, he pulled the trigger, hitting Vulture squarely in the chest. A fist-sized bloody hole appeared in Vulture's chest, but he felt nothing. The voice in his mind urged him to continue charging forward. Ning Lu's expression was calm as he quickly pulled the trigger. Vulture's eyes, heart, hands, and ankles were almost pierced by the beams, and bloody flowers bloomed. Vulture's corpse crashed heavily onto the metal walkway, blood staining the vibrating chainsword. Ning Lu slung the laser gun across his body and picked up the chainsword, sensing that this weapon was somewhat different. Rolslev, who had been appointed as the leader, rushed into the foundry and happened to witness his boss firing several shots to kill Vulture, which greatly shocked him. The Scavenger Gang was not a large gang in the lower nest, but Vulture was known for his strength and ruthlessness, yet he was killed without even getting close. Open black lens bracket. How can the boss be so powerful at such a young age? He'll definitely be a big shot in the Hive City in the future. Following him has prospects, close black lens bracket. Thinking this, Rolslev immediately shouted to his subordinates. What are you standing around for? Do you want to drink the dregs at the bottom of the soup? Get moving. Control the workers, capture the Scavenger Gang prisoners, and kill anyone who dares to resist. 2 hours later, Ning Lu sat in the control room. The foundry was back in operation. Besides the workers, he had 513 subordinates. Ning Lu changed into a clean work uniform, with a laser gun and chainsword slung diagonally across his back, both taller than himself. The factory cooks had prepared hard, brick-like black bread and red cabbage soup made from a few vegetable leaves for him. This was already the best food in the foundry. Ning Lu ate 10 slices of black bread. His superhuman body felt no discomfort. He then drank a large bowl of soup before feeling full. He looked up at the door, then heard a knock. "Come in. Boss, the foundry has resumed normal production." Rolslev pushed the door open, his face troubled, but he reported the good news first. "Boss, the Handmansea Dome, to which Foundry D46 belongs, is under the jurisdiction of arbitrator Dimitrov. He wants you to go there." Ning Lu knew that the lower nest was composed of domes. These buildings were built by the original settlers. As the hive city developed, the domes were gradually abandoned. The residents of the lower nest were little more advanced than the giant rats and other harmful animals living there in the eyes of the hive city dwellers. They lived in domes formed by clusters of buildings, surviving in a honeycomb-like underground city of domes, tunnels, and ruins. Arbitrator. Ning Lu thought of the arbitrator from the lawyer adjacent pathway sequence 9, but the arbitrator of Vostonia would obviously not mean the same thing. After inquiring, Ning Lu understood that the so-called arbitrator was similar to the law enforcement officers who would supervise the domes under the governors of various hive city worlds in the future. The arbitrators of the lower nest usually independently governed the domes, adjudicating various matters within their jurisdiction. The people who escaped from the foundry reported Ning Lu's defeat of the scavenger gang and occupation of the factory to Dimitrov. "Boss, Vulture had a terrible reputation. I think Dimitrov is probably curious about you, since you are so young. According to the arbitrator's style of doing things, he will also warn you. I heard he likes to use his big dog to scare people." Chem dog. Upon hearing this, Ning Lu immediately became interested. "Yes, boss, you know that wicked dog too." Chapter 5, Twisting Off a Dog's Head. Ning Lu arrived at the center of Handmansea Dome with 2 of his subordinates. 2 guards holding weapons stood before the 3-story gray building. "Are you Ning Lu?" "That's right." The 2 guards heard him and warily glanced at the laser gun on his back. "You can only go in alone, and you can't bring any weapons." Ning Lu cooperatively took off his laser gun and chainsword, handing them to his subordinate. The 2 guards breathed a sigh of relief, and the one on the left spoke. "Arbitrator Dimitrov is waiting for you in the arbitration hall on the 3rd floor." Everyone they met along the way looked at the boy with surprise. "He's the one who killed Vulture." "Vulture must have been drunk to be killed by a kid like that. I heard his marksmanship is superb, even better than the guards beside Bolslav King. Every shot can pierce the enemy's eye." Ning Lu clearly heard the whispered discussions around him and calmly walked to the 3rd floor. The entire 3rd floor, covering over 400 square meters, was exclusively occupied by the arbitration hall. After the 2 guards at the entrance rechecked that he had no weapons, they let him in. Ning Lu entered the arbitration hall. Facing away from him, standing by the window, was a figure in a gray uniform with a steel bionic left arm. Woof woof. The chemical dog, grown on chemical agents, was as tall as an adult and as wide as a tiger. The chemical dog swiftly darted in front of Ning Lu, its green eyes fixed on his dark ones. Its long tongue licked towards his face, and the strong, pungent smell even wafted out the door. "Yogan, come back." Dimitrov turned his head. The large dog turned and went to its master's side, wagging its tail. The arbitrator stroked the large dog's fur and looked at Ning Lu. "I heard it was a boy who killed Vulture. I thought it was an exaggeration, but you're even smaller than I imagined. Yogan, don't scare the child." Dimitrov emphasized the word, child. "There's a saying on ancient Terra, heroes are not judged by age. If your dog is disobedient, I don't mind teaching him a lesson, like tearing off his head." Dimitrov's eyes narrowed, scanning him from head to toe. After confirming the boy had no weapons, a confident smile appeared on his face. He had started raising Yogan ever since he became an arbitrator, adding many strengthening agents to Vostonia's traditional formula. No matter how vicious the lower nest criminal, if targeted by the chemical dog, they would be torn to shreds. If Ning Lu had a gun, he would be wary, but an unarmed boy could only be slaughtered. Of course, it would be a pity for such an excellent boy to die. This beast really needs a lesson. If you can tear off his head, I won't blame you. If he tackles you, it means you're too young and need training. You'll come and learn by my side." With that, he patted the chemical dog's head, and the large dog immediately went wild, leaping high into the air and pouncing on Ning Lu. Ning Lu's dark eyes fixed on the chemical dog. Through its thick brown fur, he saw its throat area, which was slightly yellowish. That was Yogan's habit. After drinking chemical agents, the chemical dog liked to hold them in its mouth for a moment, and years of corrosion made its already fragile throat even more of a weakness, though it was hidden by its thick fur. When enemies faced it, they would also be intimidated by its massive body and choked by the pungent chemical agent smell. The gene seed Primarch subtly shifted, and the chemical dog missed, crashing to the ground. Ning Lu clamped the chemical dog's neck with both arms, precisely on that yellow line, and his legs tightly gripped the large dog. With a snap, the arbitrator watched in shock as the boy twisted the chemical dog's neck. Dimitrov stared at the boy in astonishment, as if looking at a humanoid beast. Someone could actually break a chemical dog's neck with their bare hands. "I'll take this dog's head with me." Ning Lu only needed the tongue, but he asked for the entire dog's head to conceal the most important alchemical material for the lawyer. The arbitrator's eyes fixed on the bloody dog corpse. "Foundry D46 is yours. Everything is usual." "Good." Ning Lu immediately turned and left. He didn't feel any killing intent from Dimitrov, and he didn't want to challenge the old order of Handmancy Dome just yet. After leaving the arbitration hall, he pulled out a pre-prepared rope, tied the dog's head, and slung it diagonally across his body. Everyone they met along the way, recognizing the arbitrator's chemical dog, looked at the boy in surprise. Ning Lu walked up to his subordinates. "Take me to the hive giant rats." "Yes, boss." A moment later, the two subordinates led him to a narrow passage. "Boss, this passage is the largest giant rat habitat among the hundreds of passages around Handmancy Dome." "Let's go." "Boss, just the three of us. Should we go back and call your other subordinates?" The subordinate with a gray rat head tattooed on his left arm asked in surprise. "Boss, you don't know, there are thousands of giant rats in this passage. Although your marksmanship is godlike, it can't withstand a tide of giant rats." "I have my own way." Ning Lu looked at the two. "Do you want to eat rat meat or skin?" The two looked at Ning Lu, who held a sword, their eyes full of doubt. Even if the boss's swordsmanship was as excellent as his marksmanship, the boss's body hadn't fully grown, and every giant rat was bigger than him. Moreover, those giant rats were fast, their teeth could bite through steel plates, and most terrifyingly, their numbers were vast. In a place like a passage, they could instantly overwhelm the three of them. If they had a choice, the two naturally wouldn't want to go, but they didn't dare not to. Ning Lu killed without batting an eye, one shot, one kill, they had all witnessed it. The two exchanged glances, immediately understanding the bitterness in each other's eyes. They spoke simultaneously. "Boss, we'll go with you." The two followed Ning Lu into the dim passage, 10 people wide, and then saw the boss activate his chainsword. The roaring sound was particularly harsh in the passage. The passage immediately trembled, and the squeaking sounds made their scalps tingle, while countless pairs of crimson eyes made their legs tremble. The two didn't have time to stop him, and it was too late to run. They sighed inwardly. "Open black lens bracket this time, we're definitely dead. I thought I was following a strong man, but it turns out he's just an arrogant child." Close black lens bracket. Just then, Ning Lu moved. Each time he swung his blade, he killed a giant rat. The two's eyes gradually adjusted to the dim environment. They widened their eyes. The boy in front was like a ruthless killing machine. Suddenly, they saw a giant rat nearly 2 meters long pounce fiercely on Ning Lu from above the passage. "Boss, look out." Ning Lu's movements were faster than their warning. He leapt sideways, dodging the giant rat's ambushing from above and pouncing from the front. The two giant rats collided. The ambushing giant rat let out a yelp, and the smaller one immediately froze, being bitten to death by the larger one. Just as it was about to look up, Ning Lu came beside it and kicked it in the head. The giant rat was immediately knocked unconscious. All the other giant rats stopped and then turned to flee. The subordinate with the rat head tattoo on his left arm slapped his forehead. "Boss, you caught the Rat King. The rat swarm was scared away by you." Ning Lu slung the chainsword on his back. "You two, each carry 2 giant rats. I'll reward you with meat when we get back." "Thank you, boss. Boss is wise and mighty. Boss is the king of the lower nest." The two vied to flatter their boss. Now they knew that following their boss, their future was bright. Ning Lu hoisted the unconscious giant rat onto his shoulder. "Let's go." The two each carried a giant rat about a meter long. Rodents are relatively light, each weighing only about 30 kilograms. For them, who live by the sword, 60 kilograms was only slightly strenuous. Ning Lu did not immediately return to the foundry. He first traded 1-meter-long hive giant rat for 2000 ml each of black Ros Fuerte, gray Vort, yellow Vort, and green Vort. He only needed black Ros Fuerte. Exchanging for 4 types was merely to conceal the alchemical materials. Open black lens bracket. Once I get a wire grass from the foundry, the alchemical materials will be complete. Close black lens bracket. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Chapter 6, Becoming an Extraordinary. In the foundry, an empty furnace that had been unused for centuries was cleaned, and Ning Lu drove everyone within 100 meters away. He also shut down the monitoring room. He held a rubber spoon and began to concoct the potion. Concocting a potion does not require advanced techniques. One only needs to accurately add the auxiliary materials first, then the main materials, in the order of the formula, and then stir. Ning Lu poured 1100 milliliters of black Ros Fuerte into the furnace and simultaneously lit the fire. He then threw in 1 thorn crystal. As the crystal cluster exploded in the furnace, he tossed in a 2-meter-long, unconscious hive giant rat. He stirred it several times with the rubber spoon and watched the giant rat melt at a visible rate. This was not only the effect of thousands of crystal shards cutting but also the miraculous reaction of the potion ingredients. Ning Lu knew that a slight difference in the amount of auxiliary materials did not matter, but the main materials could not be off by even a tiny bit. He had repeatedly confirmed the length of the wire grass beforehand. He threw in 1100 millimeters of wire grass, and corrosive acidic juice splattered, further accelerating the reaction. A gurgling sound immediately arose from within, and the surrounding light was tinged with faint black. When he threw in the chemical dog tongue, the turbulent liquid in the furnace was only about half a meter deep. As soon as the long tongue was thrown into the furnace, black mist instantly billowed out, clouding the area around the furnace. A few seconds later, the black mist receded, and Ning Lu scooped out the viscous black liquid with a rubber spoon. The liquid had a strange characteristic. It was interconnected and never separated, with not a single drop remaining in the furnace. Ning Lu knew this was a unique characteristic of potions. The lawyer potion had been successfully concocted. Those who do not know the potion formula cannot concoct a potion by chance, as the order of the potion materials must be correct, and the quantities must be just right. If the giant rat were added first and then the thorn crystal, one would only get a pot of stewed rat. If there were a little too much wire grass, drinking it would result in madness being the best outcome. Ning Lu poured the black liquid into a bowl. He knew that the more he hesitated and feared, the worse the absorption effect would be. As a gene seed Primarch, he was not worried about poisoning and directly tilted his head back to drink it. Immediately, he felt a chilling sensation in his mouth, as if he had swallowed a mouthful of ice cream, which then slid down his esophagus and into his stomach. The chilling sensation instantly penetrated every cell, and his vision quickly blurred, with all colors intensifying. The gray furnace became grayer, the red flames redder. The color blocks were rich, like an oil painting. At the same time, a massive stream of information flooded his mind. Having experienced it once before, he quickly adapted. Gradually, Ning Lu saw the surroundings clearly. All colors were distinct and overlapping, with black mist pervading. He also saw his body standing still below, trembling. His consciousness suddenly sank and merged with his body. Ning Lu felt his head swell and his temples throb. He knew this was the overflowing power of the potion and a lack of control methods. He needed to imagine a common, simple, and easy object in his mind. He chose the chainsword. As he gradually shifted his attention to the imagined chainsword, the double images in his eyes slowly overlapped, no longer blurry. Ning Lu picked up the prepared mirror and looked into his eyes, finding that his entire eyeball, including the white sclera, was pitch black. He knew this was an external manifestation of the potion's power. By learning meditation and how to restrain it, his eyes would return to normal. He immediately tried it, stepping to the back of the furnace, turning off the lumen light above his head, and putting himself in dimness. The first step of meditation, just like before, was to close his eyes and outline the chainsword in his mind. When imagining something that does not exist in this world, Ning Lu found it difficult. With so many worlds in the galaxy, he could not even imagine a suitable object. A flash of inspiration suddenly struck his mind, and he imagined the symbol of the Black Emperor pathway. He first outlined the disordered black arcs, followed by the surrounding wings, spikes, and the abstract crown above. As Ning Lu gradually replaced the chainsword with the Black Emperor pathway symbol, he also merged with the transcendent I, the infinite I, and the cosmic I, gaining knowledge that only he could comprehend. In the field of mysticism, this is called mystical experience. The Thousand Suns call it etheric journey. Ning Lu cleared his mind, his body and spirit became quiet, and the black mist reappeared, with his psychic vision extending little by little. Like a stone cast into a lake, his mind flashed with ancient texts like the Napoleonic Code, from ancient Terra and the Imperial Code, enacted by the Emperor, as well as the physiological structure of humans, the composition of mechanical constructs, and even the physiological structure and weaknesses of Xenos like orcs. Ning Lu understood that the former obviously stemmed from his extraordinary identity as a lawyer, while the latter should be something the Emperor, combining genetic science and psychic powers, implanted into the gene seed Primarchs, and he absorbed a part of it during his own mystical experience. A moment later, after his superhuman brain absorbed all the knowledge, he decided to practice the most common ability in the field of mysticism that most extraordinaries can master, psychic vision. Ning Lu raised his hands, placed them before his eyes, with his index fingers facing each other but not touching. He opened his eyes and instantly adapted to the dark environment. He focused his gaze behind his hands and slowly moved his fingers. Once, twice. Ning Lu saw a hint of fiery red between his fingers. He knew this was elementary psychic vision, and the color he saw was his aura. In the field of mysticism, the non-physical parts of each person are divided into 4 layers. The core part is the spiritual body, also known as the soul, which is called psychic vision when it overflows. The resilience of the spiritual body determines a person's resistance when facing the warp and various horrors. The lawyer potion strengthened psychic vision, giving extraordinaries the ability to find and exploit loopholes in rules and weaknesses in opponents, striking them through order. Both involve striking weaknesses, but the Emperor granted him the ability to kill enemies, while the lawyer granted him the ability to strike opponents by exploiting rules. Beyond the spiritual body is the astral body, which is a way of communicating with the spirit world and the starry sky. It is the external manifestation of the former, directly related to one's will and current emotions. The scenes seen after consuming the potion are images seen by the astral body, wandering in the spirit world, where the rules of the material world do not apply, and past, present, and future can overlap. Through experience and combining it with the knowledge gained in the gestation pod, he understood that the so-called spirit world was another name for the warp. The astral body is the focus of the Thousand Suns cultivation, the mind. Magnus created this method of cultivation, the state of mind, and taught it to his sons. He also knew that Ahriman and other Thousand Suns would detach their astral body, which they called the body of light, from their main body to travel in the warp. The lawyer potion did not strengthen the astral body, but he knew that the essence of the warp was integrated into the manufacturing process of every gene seed Primarch. Just now, in his first attempt, he gained knowledge from the warp. Further out from the astral body is the mental body, which involves the brain. The lawyer enhanced his critical thinking and logic. The outermost layer is the etheric body, which is a manifestation of life energy and physical state. Different parts of the body have different colors. The hand he saw earlier was red, and the head was purple. Incorrect color indicates a problem with the body. Ning Lu checked each part one by one. All were healthy, and the whole body emitted a dazzling light, whereas ordinary people are white. He then practiced how to exit psychic vision, focusing his attention, switching to a meditative state, closing his eyes, controlling his psychic vision, and repeatedly telling it to stop. Opening his eyes again, he found that psychic vision had ended. Ning Lu practiced repeatedly several times, repeatedly suggesting to himself, repeatedly influencing psychic vision, leaving a simple on-off action. He lightly tapped his glabella twice to activate psychic vision. The surrounding furnaces, machine tools, etc., showed no difference and no light whatsoever. Most inanimate objects have no psychic vision. When his gaze swept over the chainsword, he saw a bloody glow within it. Open black lens bracket him. There's psychic vision residue on the vultures, chainsword, possibly even potion materials. Close black lens bracket. Ning Lu had felt that this weapon was somewhat special before, so he was not surprised to find it contained psychic vision after activating psychic vision. He then lightly tapped his glabella twice to deactivate psychic vision, planning to practice observing others' auras later. Ning Lu then recalled the extraordinary abilities he gained from drinking the lawyer potion. This explanation combines the non-physical aspects from Warhammer and Lord of the Mysteries. In fact, both originate from mysticism and share many similarities, with only slight differences in terminology. For instance, the spirit world, like the warp, is not bound by physical rules, and past, present, and future intersect. Additionally, the official novel, Horus Rising, has used the term spirit world to refer to the warp. Considering the readers, subsequent descriptions will mostly adopt Warhammer terminology, with the exception of psychic vision. Chapter 7. The Lawyer. The lawyer's Beyander abilities are threefold. First, spiritual enhancement. Second, excellent critical thinking and the ability to extract key points from information. The third ability, and the core of the lawyer, is Beyander oratory. It grants Beyander abilities in rhetoric and persuasion, and can, to a certain extent, distort or guide the target's thoughts, making them feel amiable and willing to believe. As a Primarch, he was destined to conquer Vostonia. Of course, not all Primarchs conquered their respective worlds. Even before Horus awakened his genetic memories, he was merely a teenage gang member and hadn't unified Corsonia. After awakening, he returned to the Imperium. Regardless of the status of other Primarchs, Ning Lu had already decided to conquer Vostonia, and if given the chance, he would expand to other planets. At the same time, he also needed to climb the sequence pathway, starting with role-playing as a lawyer, to digest the potion. After drinking the potion, it won't be fully absorbed. To gain all the power it contains, one needs to role-play. When role-playing, one needs to interpret the potion's name to grasp its core symbolism and specific imagery. Ning Lu believed that role-playing as a lawyer didn't necessarily mean pursuing the literal profession. Benefiting from rules as role-playing as a lawyer, if one can find and exploit loopholes in the rules, the role-playing effect will be even better. Whether his interpretation was correct would be known then. A Beyander would definitely perceive the digestion of the role-playing method. Open black lens bracket. Based on my understanding from my previous life, and what I've seen and heard in Tezvok, the only rule in the lower nest is that matters within the Handman-Sea Dome are decided by the arbiter. Outside the Handman-Sea Dome, there are no rules. Close black lens bracket. As Ning Lu thought of this, he immediately devised the next course of action. Open black lens bracket. Just like before, quickly occupy the factory. If the arbiter intervenes, I'll use Beyander oratory to persuade him. Close black lens bracket. With this thought, he called Rolslev and inquired about the situation in the Handmansea Dome. He set his target on the largest factory in the Handmansea Dome, the Magneto steel plant. All factories within the Handmansea Dome relied on the steel it produced. The middle steel, a plastic steel composite material produced by Magneto, even flowed into the upper nest as a material for manufacturing carapace armor. The Magneto steel plant was controlled by Iron Fist Gorskov, who had over 1,000 thugs under him. Ning Lu also learned about Tezvok's timekeeping method. A day in Vostonia, like other Hive City worlds, was called a work cycle. Each work cycle consisted of 33 hours, divided into 3 shifts: the Bani shift, the Curie time, and the Night Kyle shift. Workers in the upper nest operated on a strict 3-shift system. Work hours in lower nest factories varied, but were generally longer than in the upper nest. Ning Lu decided to launch the attack at the end of the Night Kyle shift. Although the workers' hours were irregular, the guards worked in 3 shifts. In the last hour before their shift change, which was also when the star obscured by industrial dust rose, was when they were most relaxed. In the second to last hour of the Night Kyle shift, Ning Lu stood on a high platform, gently tapping his glabella twice, looking at the people below. A person's emotional state, or astral body, would have a slight external manifestation. Beyonders with psychic vision could determine a person's health and emotional state by the different thickness, brightness, and color of their aura. He had previously examined his own physical state, and now he was observing the overall emotions of others. Most psychers also possessed this ability. The Thousand Suns called it etheric sight. Ning Lu scanned the crowd and, as expected, the main body of everyone's aura was a heavy black. They feared him. Some of them, especially Rolslev and others who had eaten good things before, had a hint of light orange expectation mixed in their auras. He tapped his glabella twice again, closed his psychic vision, and then spoke. You should have understood these past 2 days that the more you do, the more you get, but you don't know how much you can get. In the past, you followed your bosses, fighting tooth and nail, only to end up with some food, and most of the time you weren't even full. It will be different from now on. As long as you work hard, you can eat anything. Today I brought back giant rats, and I also brought back Vort. Ning Lu's tone deepened, enticing the crowd. Imagine, a bite of rat meat, a gulp of Vort. His subordinates were drawn to the scene described by the newly promoted lawyer, and corresponding images involuntarily appeared in their minds. They subconsciously swallowed their saliva. Rolslev was the first to raise his head, his eyes full of longing. Those around him were influenced and also looked up. Finally, everyone looked at their boss with a glimmer of hope. Ning Lu raised his hand and waved it forcefully. Depart. Seize the Magneto steel plant, eat meat and drink. Everyone fanatically shouted along. Seize the Magneto steel plant, eat meat and drink. Ning Lu saw everyone turn around. He withdrew his arm, and tapped his glabella twice. He indeed found that everyone's emotions had changed. The dominant color of their aura had become the red of passionate excitement. 1 work cycle later, rapid gunfire echoed through the Magneto steel plant. After Ning Lu killed the guards at the entrance, he was the first to rush into the factory, and then saw a tall, heavily bearded man on the steel platform staring intently at him. His right sleeve was exposed, revealing his steel bionic arm. Ning Lu. Gorskov's tone was firm. He spat. Kid, you managed to kill Vulture, so you do have some skill. But I'm not a waste like Vulture. Today I'll capture you, enjoy myself, and then sell you to the upper nest. His response was a beam of light shot towards him. Gorskov saw Ning Lu raise his gun and thought, not good, only managing to block his body with his steel right arm. Amidst a sharp, crisp sizzling sound, a large hole was shot through the steel arm, revealing the copper wires and steel plates inside. You brat, you dare to ambush me. Gorskov swung his arm and simultaneously clenched his fist, his steel fist rotating as it shot towards Ning Lu. He relied on the mechanical arm, purchased at a great expense from the Fenn family, to ambush and kill several strongmen in the lower nest. Gorskov knew Ning Lu's marksmanship was precise. He had almost been killed by a single shot just now. He immediately used his Iron Fist killing move, which he only employed against the most formidable enemies. Ning Lu held his gun in his left hand and swiftly drew his chainsword with his right, activating it with a roar. The mechanical structure he had previously obtained appeared in his mind. He then wielded his sword and flicked it, the blade directly inserting into the connecting rod and joint of the mechanical structure. The transmission device drove the Iron Fist forward, but it was jammed by the chainsword. Two high-speed rotating forces, almost perpendicular in direction, interacted, and after a few seconds, the Iron Fist detached from the connecting rod and fell to the ground. Gorskov was startled and turned to run. Just as he took a step, a bright beam of light entered from the back of his head. One work cycle later, Ning Lu controlled the magneto-steel plant. His subordinates did not decrease but increased. After incorporating some of Iron Fist's thugs, his combat personnel approached 600. Ning Lu personally led 200 subordinates, rushing into the tunnels to hunt over 400 giant rats, 50 of which were exchanged for over 100 bottles of Lersvort. As the meat stew simmered, he spoke to the crowd. As I said, everyone who participated in this battle will have enough meat and a cup of wine. Those newly joined can only have soup. If you want to eat meat and drink, work hard next time. He activated his psychic vision to observe the auras of the crowd, finding that his brought subordinates all had warm, satisfied orange auras, and their gazes towards him had changed from fear to reverence. The newly recruited personnel, on the other hand, showed fear mixed with hope and envy. Ning Lu nodded in satisfaction. He felt his spirituality become more lively. Open black lens bracket role-playing as a lawyer was successful. A portion of the potion has been digested. Close black lens bracket. He then went to the control room, locked the door, and with a thought, black mist rose, his spirituality lightened, his astral body left his body, and in an instant, he arrived in Shishuji Guo. The potion's role-playing absorbs the Beyonder characteristic within the potion, enhancing spirituality and Beyonder abilities. For example, the lawyer's digestion lies in utilizing rules, especially loopholes in rules. Of course, gaining the approval of others will increase the digestion progress. The Chaos Lesser God Maris, extremely high in status and powerful, but inherently chaotic, relying on brute force to kill, not involving order and rules, would never be able to digest the lawyer potion. Conversely, an ordinary lawyer might digest it from preparing to concluding a major case planetary level. A Ministry of Law member might take 10+ days, and an Internal Affairs Department member might take a month or so. Chapter 8. New Potion Recipe. Ning Lu's entry into the disordered country this time was different from before. Previously, it was his consciousness, ethereal and formless. Now, it was his star spirit body, and the sensations were more real and richer. As his star spirit body magnified several times, upon arriving in the disordered country, he immediately perceived a series of changes in this Black Mist nation. The most intuitive feeling was the expansion of the light's range. An area with 1,000-meter diameter centered on him was bathed in light. He also felt that, in reality, the entire Black Mist nation was inverted, with a ground similar to obsidian above, and he was standing on it, head down and feet up. Ning Lu understood in his heart. Open black lens bracket, disordered country. The shadow of order, close black lens bracket. He stepped forward, and after a few steps, he adapted to the feeling of being on the other side of a mirror. Ning Lu came before the blasphemous stone slab and found that the areas corresponding to 5 new sequences had lit up, one of which was Sequence 8, corresponding to Lawyer. Sequence 8 inches Barbarian, Potion Recipe. Main ingredients: 1 lung spider lung sac, 1 pair of ogren arms. Auxiliary ingredients: 1100 ml black Ross Fuerte, 1 psionic crystal, 1100 grams middle steel. Extraordinary abilities. Some people might find it strange that Lawyer, at Sequence 9, upon advancing to Sequence 8, becomes Barbarian. But Ning Lu understood the logic. If legal recourse fails, one must resort to force. This is also a form of rule. What caught his attention was that all the materials glowed, indicating that they could all be found in Vostonia. The middle steel could be manufactured at the steel plant he had just occupied, and with the black Ros Fuerte, he already possessed 2 auxiliary materials. Psionic crystals often appear in areas with active warp energy and are used as psionic materials. The long age of strife was accompanied by warp storms sweeping across the galaxy, so it was not surprising for Vostonia to have psionic crystals. He knew that lung spiders were a special type of spider in the Vostonia hive city. The only slight surprise was the Ogren. Are there Ogren in this world trying to make a living? Ning Lu continued to examine the other 4 lit-up areas and found that they were all potion recipes for other paths at Sequence 9. 3 sequences whose potion materials could all be found in Vostonia were Arbitrator, Sleepless, and Reader. Cultivator was the only sequence whose potion materials could not be found in Vostonia. Most of its materials were crops like rapeseed. Ning Lu was not surprised by this. This planet, which would later be designated an industrial world by the Empire, had long had its ecological environment destroyed. Open black lens bracket. I can start collecting potion materials and cultivating subordinates. Close black lens bracket. He noticed that the chainsword was not among the unlocked potion recipes. Open black lens bracket. Weapons are most likely potion materials for the warrior path. Close black lens bracket. Thinking this, Ning Lu returned to the real world. He wanted to try something. He drew his chainsword, held it in his right hand, and spiritual power emanated from his fingers. Returning to the disordered country again, he found that the chainsword had also come to the Black Mist Nation, and he placed it on the ground. The chainsword still lay flat on the ground, not falling from this Shadow Nation. Ning Lu couldn't help but smile and exclaim. After I advanced to lawyer, my source essence authority increased, allowing me to bring items into the disordered country. A must-have for the protagonist, storage space. Ning Lu immediately placed all the black Ros Fuerte into the disordered country. He also ordered that 1/20th of the middle steel forged during each work cycle be sent to the control room. He also ordered the craftsman to forge a set of armor from Miguel steel, based on his current size, prepared for the physique of a normal 7-year-old male. As a gene seed Primarch, his development was much faster than ordinary people's. Although preparing for a 7-year-old would be slightly large, given his current development speed, it would fit in at most 1 stellar month. No sooner had he finished giving orders than Rolslev arrived at the control room. Boss, the arbitrator sent his subordinate to order you to see him immediately. His tone was strong. I think it's because you occupied the magneto steel plant. Ning Lu assumed a thinking posture, lightly tapping his brow. Rolslev's aura appeared dark. He was worried for him. I understand. Ning Lu immediately rose and headed to the arbitration hall. The guards at the entrance looked at him with increased vigilance, and he spoke in a serious tone. Please leave your weapons. Ning Lu handed his lasgun and chainsword to his 2 subordinates respectively. They took the weapons with both hands, as if accepting a sacred mission. His expression calm, he walked towards the arbitration hall, the sound of discussions reaching his ears. Let me see. I didn't see him during the last foreign assignment. Is that the boy? He looks only 5 or 6 years old. Yes. It's only been 2 days since he killed Vulture, and now he's taken down Iron Fist. That old guy was a ruthless character. The big shots in the upper nest all know him. That big shot up there is the young master of the Fen family. I heard Vulture was his man. Could he be here to settle accounts? What a pity. He's still too hasty. If he had grown steadily, he would definitely be a big shot in the future, maybe even ascend to the upper nest. Although the lower nest and upper nest of a hive city are both parts of the hive city, there is a chasm between them. The dream of countless people in the lower nest is to become upper nest residents. They figuratively call the identity leap achieved by taking an elevator up thousands of meters, ascension. Ning Lu caught the key information in their conversation. The noble from the upper nest was in the arbitration hall. He secretly heightened his vigilance and also became more interested in the upcoming meeting. Entering the arbitration hall, he saw a handsome, blonde youth, about 15 or 16 years old, sitting in the main seat, his azure eyes appraising him. His skin was not as dark as that of lower nest dwellers, it looked fair and healthy. Ning Lu keenly noticed that he was wearing a set of ornate artificer power armor, which looked somewhat similar to the Alcan Confederacy armor, also in a Baroque style. His carapace armor encased a powered exoskeleton, and the helmet was fully enclosed by armor, with only a bulletproof glass section for the wearer's heads-up display. The armor was equipped with weapon systems at the ends of its arms, a heavy logging gun for ranged combat and a drill for close combat. Unlike the Alcan Confederacy armor, this set of armor was not equipped with disposable rockets. He also keenly discovered that this armor was unstable and difficult to maintain. Only noble families with the ability and financial resources to maintain it could pass it down through generations. Open black lens bracket are Vostonia's nobles so well equipped, or is the Fend family closely connected to the Mechanicus, receiving technical support from the oil boys, close black lens bracket. Ning Lu couldn't draw a conclusion. The young master of the Fend family opposite him was the first noble he had met. Behind the noble stood 4 guards, fully armed and clad in carapace armor. The young master of the Fend family did not speak, he gestured to Dimitrov with his eyes. The arbitrator understood. He cleared his throat and then loudly questioned. Ning Lu, what exactly do you want? Is one foundry not enough to satisfy you? It's only been a few days, and you've already seized the magneto steel plant. Are you going to seize my position in a few days and take over the Handmancy Dome too? Chapter 9. Conquering the Dome. Facing the arbitrator's oppressive aura, Ning Lu's expression remained calm. I brought the magneto steel plant under my control not for myself, but for the Handmancy Dome, and even more so for you, arbitrator. The young master of the Fend family showed an interested gaze, and the arbitrator was amused by his anger. Don't talk nonsense, kid. You took the steel plant for yourself, how could it be for me? Vostonia has been loyal to Mars for thousands of years. What do the followers of the Omniscia value? Efficiency is their top priority, am I right? Listening to Ning Lu's calm and soothing voice, Dimitrov's irritable mood gradually calmed down, but he still didn't understand what the other party's words had to do with him. The arbitrator's tone softened slightly as he asked. You're right, but what does that have to do with you taking over the steel plant? And how is it for me? The steel industry where the magneto steel plant is located is upstream of Foundry D46. Chandler, an ancient Terra management expert, has already said that controlling upstream enterprises can optimize resource allocation and improve resource utilization. Once my foundry controls the steel plant, efficiency will greatly increase, and the Handmancy Dome will stand out among many domes, and you will also enter the Tech Priest's site. Dimitrov fell into deep thought upon hearing this. The entire Vostonia was ruled by nobles and Tech Priests from Mars. Even if he only gained the favor of one Tech Priest, he could ascend to the upper nest. He was silent for a moment before speaking. Why you? Wouldn't it be better if I controlled it myself? Ning Lu smiled confidently and said. If the arbitrator acts personally, it will inevitably cause strong resistance from many factories, and you will lose a large number of people. If I merge the factories, they won't immediately form an alliance. They won't realize I have such a big appetite. By the time they react, the overall situation will be set. I have the ability to swallow all factories, and only I can improve the efficiency of the entire dome. Dimitrov looked at Ning Lu. He was convinced by the other party's logic, and he also felt strong confidence, as if the boy would do what he said. But he thought of Fender's instructions and still forced himself to find an excuse. Rules cannot be broken. Not so. Ning Lu instantly recalled the legal knowledge he gained when he drank the potion, and found a precedent he could cite from Tezvok's rulings. To my knowledge, 38 years ago, the Kurnikova family launched a surprise attack without precedent, seizing 52 chemical plants in the upper nest within 19 work cycles, and ultimately won victory in the arbitration assembly composed of nobles and the Mechanicus, thereby monopolizing the chemical industry. And according to Open Double Angle Bracket Omniscia Guide Close Double Angle Bracket, written by Kivier the Wise, Chapter 11 Fiqh Tezvok Governance Regulations, Article 11 Factory Management Rules, Article 11 Detailed Rules, past precedents of this hive city may all be cited as a basis for judgment. Although Vostonia had not yet joined the Imperium, and the Ministry of Law had not yet entered the Tetzverk hive, a unique decision-making body had formed locally due to its special dual-headed political system. They inherited the arbitration system of ancient Terra and established an arbitration body with the same name as the Ministry of Law's adjudication body, the Arbitration Court. Members of the Arbitration Court were composed of nobles and tech priests, who made decisions on major matters, and this also led to the emergence of special groups like lawyers. This system, when extended to the lower nest, was simplified to the arbitrator making sole decisions. Upon hearing this, the blonde noble stared intently at Ning Lu. The precedents and detailed rules cited by the other party were likely only known by Hive City barristers, and how could he, a young boy from the lower nest, know them? Open black lens bracket looking at his appearance, he doesn't look like a lower nest person at all, but he's still a teenager. Even a barrister from the upper nest would still be learning basic knowledge at this age, and it's impossible to master legal provisions to this extent. Close black lens bracket. Dimitrov's gaze was blank. He wasn't even sure if this detailed rule existed in the Open Double Angle Bracket Omniscia Guide Close Double Angle Bracket. As an independent arbitrator, he only needed to grasp the rules at a basic level. While he was thinking, he heard Ning Lu speak. I imagine this noble from the upper nest must know this regulation. How dare you? How dare you call an adult by his name? You should address him as adult. No matter, the noble young master applauded and looked at Ning Lu with appreciation. A wonderful argument, just as wonderful as the barrister's arguments I've overheard in the adjudication hall. You've convinced me. The steel plant you seized originally supplied raw materials to the Fen family, which is also why I came. When I heard that a boy 10 years younger than me had achieved such success in a short time, I decided to meet you in person. Now, your performance amazes me. He turned to the arbitrator and said, Dimitrov, give him a chance. I want to see how far he can go. As you command, adult. The arbitrator looked at Ning Lu, who had gained the favor of adult Howard, with envy in his eyes. Howard Fen turned back, but I have one condition. I want to send an observer to be with you. Don't rush to refuse. He won't restrict any of your actions. He'll merely observe your abilities. If you perform well enough, I will support your expansion in the lower nest, and even help you go to the upper nest. Ning Lu pondered for a moment. He thought of the rare material, psionic crystal. Besides psionic craftsmen, it was most likely to be in the hands of nobles and tech priests. All right, but I want a psionic crystal. You're asking for a high price. Howard was silent for a moment. No problem, but you must control all factories in the Handman-Sea Dome within 1 month and increase production capacity by more than 10%. Can you do that? Of course. Seeing Ning Lu so confident, Howard became even more curious. He said to a subordinate holding a plasma gun beside him. Yassine, you follow him. As you command, young master. Dimitrov said to Ning Lu, congratulations, Ning Lu. The magneto steel plant is yours, and you are also permitted to merge all factories in the Handman-Sea Dome. As Ning Lu heard these words, he felt his spirituality become much more vibrant. Open black lens bracket him, by playing the role of a lawyer, I gained benefits and received recognition from others. The digestion rate is better than simply seizing benefits. Close black lens bracket. 16 work cycles later, upper nest. Howard Fen sat in his office, his brows furrowed. As he was deep in thought, the beeping sound of the voice intercommunication system within his master-crafted power armor rang out. He connected it, and his personal butler's voice came through. Master, Yassine has returned. Upon hearing this, Howard's brows furrowed even deeper. His order to Yassine was to return only after Ning Lu's actions yielded results. Open black lens bracket. Could it be that he controlled all the factories in the dome so quickly? How is that possible? He couldn't possibly be dead, no, it's impossible. With the abilities he displayed, he couldn't fail, but how could it be so fast? Close black lens bracket. Tell him to come in. A moment later, Yassine rushed in. Adult, Ning Lu has already controlled all 63 factories in the Handmancy Dome, and he has increased production capacity by 15%. Howard was stunned, and it took him several seconds to recover. How did he do it? Adult, his combat power can only be described as terrifying. Even if all of us, whom you've trained, went against him together, we wouldn't be his match. I suspect he's a product of genetic engineering, perhaps even cultivated in a Mechanicus gene laboratory. In just over 10 days, he's grown significantly taller, and his combat can only be described as art, precise, efficient, and lethal in one blow. Yassine spoke voluminously, vividly recounting the entire process of Ning Lu's conquest of the dome. Howard, who had been reclining in his leather chair, gradually sat upright, finally propping his chin with his hand, listening intently to his confidant's report. He also has certain qualities about him. His speeches are very inspiring. Those lifeless workers seem to have been brainwashed by him, full of drive. Even some gang leaders, after hearing his speech, brought their subordinates and factories to pledge allegiance voluntarily. However, he truly did it. He standardized factory management, improved the efficiency of the entire production chain, and he also ensured that both workers and thugs were well fed. Not just the workers, but even those former gang scum, followed his regulations diligently. They were like, Yassine thought for a while, then found a suitable word from the vocabulary his adult had used. Those scumbags were like they had been reborn. I dare say that the arbitrator's subordinates are no match for Ning Lu's subordinates in combat power anymore. He really did it. Howard was stunned for more than 10 seconds, then suddenly thought of the problem he was currently facing. Open black lens bracket. Perhaps he can help me solve my current troubles. Close black lens bracket. He abruptly stood up, used his family crest, a golden lightning bolt on a red background, to open a secret room, and took out the largest of over 10 psionic crystals. It was 1 meter long with a cross-sectional diameter of 90 centimeters. Howard Fend is the future first company captain of the 11th Legion, a character set by the group member, I love hot pot, I love cold drinks. Chapter 10, Potion Digestion. Seeking Tuesday's follow-up reads. Handmancy Dome, Magneto Steel Plant. Ning Lu lay in bed resting. Through this period of role-playing, his potion had been mostly consumed, and he felt that he was only one step away from complete digestion. Just then, the short-range intercom buzzed shrilly. Ning Lu jumped up, and after connecting, Rolslev's respectful voice came through. Boss, a noble lord from the Fend family of the Upper Nest has come to find you, saying he wants to give you compensation. Please invite him to the meeting room. I'll be right there. Ning Lu got up, adjusted his somewhat tight armor, and then went to the newly built meeting room. After the blonde noble walked in, he looked at the young man in front of him and exclaimed. I can hardly believe your subordinates were once gang members. This is the power of order. I gave them hope and changed their lives. It's yours. Howard handed the iron box in his hand to Ning Lu. As Ning Lu took the long box, he already sensed the spiritual and warp energy overflowing from it. He opened the iron box. This psionic crystal is quite large. You went to great lengths. Howard did not mind the young man's presumptuous address. He said, besides bringing you compensation, I have another commission this time. I want to ask you to be my defense lawyer and present my arguments in the arbitration court. You name your terms, even if it's a few domes, or even factories in the Upper Nest, it's all possible. I'd like to see the case file first. Ning Lu did not agree directly. Howard, seeing that he was not blinded by profit, was even more satisfied with his temporary decision. He took out a data pad from the lining of his master-crafted power armor and handed it to the young man. Ning Lu lightly swiped his finger, and by examining the case file and asking questions, he quickly understood the situation. An overview of the case formed in his mind. 4 days ago, Count Sari, the head of the Fend family, suddenly passed away. Braylon, the second in line of succession, suddenly produced a will, which recorded Count Sari's property division decision, granting him 1/3 of the Fen's property. One question, why me? This will originally did not conform to the Fen's family rules, but Braylon gained the support of a member of the royal family, who holds a position in the arbitration court, named Estepinian. Therefore, no grand lawyer dared to take the case. The identity of the fifth arbitrator would not make people wary, but a member of the Bolslov family's collateral branch is different. Howard said frankly. He still had time to continue searching, at least he could send the family's ordinary lawyers to attend. If Ning Lu backed down when the arbitration court opened, it would be too late. No problem, Ning Lu said indifferently, but I want to choose a treasure from the Fen family's treasury. Ning Lu realized that temporarily acting as Howard's lawyer and appearing in the arbitration court was a suitable stage for completing the final digestion. Besides, he believed that the Fen's treasury should also contain potion materials. Although he feared Ning Lu's strength, his loyalty to Howard still made Yaxin want to reprimand the other party. Howard raised his hand to stop him. I agree. You can choose one item from the Fen family's treasury. Although the collection was precious, none of the items were worth more than 1/3 of the family fortune accumulated by generations of ancestors. Ning Lu asked Howard for a temporary pass to the upper nest, ordered his subordinates to guard the factory and continue searching for traces of the lung spider, then went to the upper nest alone. 3 days later, the arbitration court in the upper nest of Tezvok Hive. Nobles in luxurious attire and tech priests in red robes walked into the arbitration court from alloy metal passages on both sides. Influenced by the Martian ideology, the most revered color in all of Vostonia has always been red. In all major venues, red is the main color, and the arbitration court is no exception. The arbitrators wore luxurious robes of different colors and bore different family insignias, but they all wore red sashes around their necks and sat on red metal chairs, with their secretaries seated behind them. On either side of the red metal long table on the dais sat today's chief arbitrators, Estepinian Bolslov and tech priest Kivior 39. Estepinian, wearing a red robe embroidered with golden sun patterns, turned to look at Kivior 39. After a green light flashed on the tech priest's filter screen, he picked up the gavel and struck it heavily. Silence. The conversation among the noble arbitrators ceased abruptly. Estepinian looked at the plaintiff's side, closer to him. He met Braylon's gaze for a moment and said, "Will the plaintiff's lawyer please make the opening statement?" The lawyer, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, stood up and bowed to the dais and the surroundings. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to represent my client, Mr. Braylon Fender, in making this opening statement." His finger slid across the data pad, and a will was displayed on both sides of the cogitator hanging between the dais and the plaintiff and defendant seats. He spoke in a sorrowful tone. "Esteemed sirs, Lord Sari was a respected count who dedicated his life to the Fen family. He and my client's mother, Lady Hualin, truly loved each other and bore the fruit of their love. Now that Lord Sari has passed away, my client, in accordance with the will, inherits the gift of love left by his father, and should rightfully receive the sympathy and support of all arbitrators." Ning Lu watched the plaintiff's lawyer. He spoke with great emotion, accompanied by highly infectious gestures, and had already won the sympathy of most noble jurors. Coupled with the bias of one of the two chief arbitrators, it seemed he was sure to win. Finally, I would like to conclude with open double angle bracket omniscia guide close double angle bracket, Chapter 2, Noble Regulations, Article 15, Inheritance Regulations, and Article 11, Detailed Rules. Noble illegitimate children, under special circumstances, possess inheritance rights. In summary, my client meets the special circumstances and should inherit the property according to the will. Estepinian looked at Tezvok's top lawyer with satisfaction. All 163 cases he had handled had been won. The golden lawyer performed as excellently as ever, and victory was assured. He turned his head and looked disdainfully at the young man in the defense lawyer's seat, feigning impartiality as he said, "Defendant, your counsel is too young. This arbitrator specially permits you to replace him. Arbitrator, I insist on not changing my counsel. I trust Ning Lu, Howard said decisively. After listening to Golavin's opening statement, his family lawyer was completely incomparable to him. It was better to trust Ning Lu, perhaps this young man could still create a miracle. Please, Estepinian drew out his voice, will the defense lawyer present his arguments? Ning Lu stood up calmly amidst the mocking gazes of the crowd. First, I must correct the omission of the plaintiff's lawyer. In the detailed rules he listed, Kivir the Wise explicitly listed all special circumstances, such as direct heirs losing their capacity for judgment. Mr. Howard is in good health, shrewd and capable, and does not fall under special circumstances. Golavin's expression changed. This was the first time he had encountered a lawyer who could adapt on the spot and recall an appendix to the law. Even a grand lawyer like him, who had undergone intelligence enhancement surgery, could not remember the more than 200 million characters of open double-angle bracket Omniscia Guide close double-angle bracket. Only tech priests could remember the detailed rules. He was about to speak when he saw Ning Lu slide the data pad, displaying a photo on the cogitator, and his pupils constricted violently. Everyone, the plaintiff Braelin's mother, Hualin, was previously a dancer at the night bar. After a brief affair with Count Sari, she rose to prominence, living in a villa in the Upper Nest. But even after giving birth, she did not reform. Just the day before yesterday, she went to the home of the wealthy merchant Julio during the night Kyle shift. Braelin himself is even more useless. He is a drunkard and owes the various gangs in the Hive City a total of over 12 million Mars coin. Everyone gasped upon hearing this. Even for a noble family in the Upper Nest, this was a huge sum of money. Ning Lu displayed all the evidence he had collected over 3 days, finally looking at KIVIOR 39. Imagine, if a scoundrel like Braelin, who has no right of inheritance, obtains property that does not belong to him, he will quickly squander it after paying off his debts. This is a shameful waste, reducing the efficiency of the entire Tezvok hive. KIVIOR 39 stood up abruptly, his voice crackling from the sonic vibrator embedded beneath his pale chest cavity. The defense lawyer has sufficient evidence and rigorous logic. The Omniscia will never permit such blasphemous acts. Estepinian felt the gavel in his hand become unusually heavy. He was silent for several seconds, then decided to give up the large sum of Mars coin he was about to receive. He looked at Ning Lu with hatred, and the gavel fell heavily. After unanimous identification from this arbitrator and tech priest KIVIOR 39, the case of plaintiff Braelin versus defendant Howard is dismissed. As the Mechanicus personnel chanted the binary holy hymns of the Omniscia, Braelin and Golavin's faces turned ashen. The nobles saw a new star rising, and they all remembered the name Ning Lu. At the same time, chaotic, disordered black threads flickered in Ning Lu's eyes. They rapidly combined, gradually forming the Black Emperor pathway symbol in his eyes. He also noticed something dissolving within him, merging with his spirit. Open black lens bracket. The potion is completely digested. I am now a true lawyer. Close black lens bracket. He then looked at Howard, who was restraining his excitement and maintaining noble etiquette. Open black lens bracket and the potion materials I am about to acquire. Close black lens bracket. Chapter 11. Ogren Squad seeking further reads. Fend, Howard's private reception room. The new Lord Earl, who had already succeeded to the position of family head and received all the property, cast aside all his affairs and proactively raised his glass. Ning Lu, thank you for your help this time. Ning Lu raised his glass and clinked it with Howard. Ning Lu, you have already made a name for yourself. The Hive City's top lawyer was defeated by you in court. I think you should abandon the factory. A single noble's case can earn you more Mars coins than all your profits in the dome. More importantly, being a lawyer is one of the highest status professions a Hive citizen can engage in, and can even grant extremely high political standing within the upper echelons of the Hive City. I have no interest in being a lawyer long-term. Ning Lu knew that lawyers and other legal professionals were the most common politicians in peacetime, but Vostonia, and even the entire galaxy, was about to usher in the magnificent era of the Great Crusade. Since the lawyer role was complete, he would no longer seek any political capital. The barbarian plan of overturning the table and violent revolution was already brewing in his mind. As for Howard, through this period of interaction, he greatly admired the ability and magnanimity of this 16-year-old noble youth. In that case, I won't force you. Come with me to the treasury and choose your reward. Howard put down his glass and stood up, leading Ning Lu forward. Walking over the shining red brick floor, Howard noticed that Ning Lu's gaze did not linger on the luxurious decorations, valuable murals, or exquisite furnishings. He remained as calm as ever, following him unhurriedly. A moment later, a ponderer appeared before them, with something resembling a human in front of its panel. It was a servitor, an automated device created by surgically removing human brain lobes and then modifying the individual. Ning Lu realized that it was not an ordinary servitor, but a sentinel. This was given to our ancestor by Kivier the Wise when the Fend family was established. Only those with the family bloodline can activate it. The master-crafted power armor named after him, which I wear, was also a gift from him at that time. Ning Lu nodded. Open black lens bracket. The Fend family is very closely connected with the machine cultists. Close black lens bracket. The sentinel turned its head towards the two of them, and an amber iris lit up in one of its eye sockets. Accompanied by a piercing shriek, its lower jaw opened. Its lower jaw was much wider than a normal human's, and its mouth was filled with sharp metal fangs. The fangs pierced Howard's skin and embedded themselves in his flesh, and a few drops of dark red blood flowed into the sentinel's throat. Subsequently, the buzzing sound of servo motors starting and mechanical pumps turning echoed, and the ponderer's visual screen continuously flickered. The heavy metal door opened with a bang, and Ning Lu followed Fender into the Fend family's treasury. His superhuman vision took in all 513 display cabinets within the 2,300 square meter treasury. He stepped up to a display case, and Howard introduced it to him. This stone is solid, yet it seems to contain a surging sea. Because of this characteristic, it was collected by the 6th-generation family head. It comes from a world covered by ocean. That planet is also in the Vostonia star system, named Sea of Melody by Kivier the Wise. When seawater strikes this stone, it emits a scream like a siren. Ning Lu nodded. This stone before him, known as the Siren Stone on the blasphemous tablet, was the main ingredient for the sequence 9 inches sailor potion. After fully digesting the lawyer potion, he returned to the disordered country, and found that his source authority had not increased, but 6 new sequence 9 potion formulas had appeared on the tablet. Sailor was one of them, and he also confirmed that the chainsword was an auxiliary material for warrior. However, Ning Lu did not plan to choose the Siren Stone. Sailor had no scope for application in Vostonia, which had no sea, and one of the main ingredients on the blasphemous tablet could not be found. He continued forward, seeing dozens of potion materials, and finally stopped before a circular black stone. Howard continued to introduce. This stone was discovered on Vostronia's moon. Kivier the Wise once said that the moon is very similar to Terra's moon, which is in the solar system, the home of humanity. I'll take that one. This stone, named Moonstone, was the main material for the sleepless pathway, and Ning Lu had already gathered the other potion materials. After obtaining the Moonstone, Ning Lu had gathered all the potion materials required for sleepless. Returning to the magneto-steel plant, he placed the Moonstone in a long, rectangular silver box, then sent it to the disordered country. Just then, the short-range walkie-talkie crackled, and Rolslev's excited voice came through. "Boss, the biggest lung spider in the lower nest, the large spider known as Black Widow, has been found. The boss always rewards good work, and this time he would get to drink some Feinlersvort again. Wait for me in the control room." A moment later, Ning Lu arrived at the control room. Besides Rolslev, he also saw a brown-skinned boy with azure eyes, who looked about 8 or 9 years old. The boy looked at Ning Lu with reverence and adoration. "Boss, he's the one who found the Black Widow." The thought of taking all the credit existed in Rolslev's mind for only a few seconds before he stifled it. The boss seemed to know what everyone was thinking, and he didn't want to try deceiving the wise and mighty boss. "Boss, I'm Bukayo." The boy suppressed his excitement and smoothly introduced himself to the boss. "Very good, you did well. Now lead the way, I want to see this big fellow." "Yes, boss." Bukayo led the way, and Ning Lu also brought 50 men, advancing towards the lung spider's lair. There were 2 rat-catching teams in the group. They had honed their skills well in hunting giant rats, and today they were to hunt the most terrifying predator in the area around the dome. After the team had advanced 4 kilometers along the dripping metal pipes, Ning Lu's ear twitched. About a kilometer behind them, a team of people was following their group, winding through the paths and always staying behind. Open black lens bracket, they're coming for me. Close black lens bracket. After walking a bit further, at a relatively open fork in the path, Ning Lu glanced out of the corner of his eye and clearly saw the people trailing him. Most striking were 5 tall, burly men, all over 2.5 meters tall, making everyone around them seem unusually short. The tallest among them was 3 meters tall. Immediately, Ning Lu's attention was drawn to the 2 people leading the Ogren squad. These 2 felt familiar. He searched his mind and immediately identified the 2. Open black lens bracket, Dimitrov's men. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket, him. The arbitrator wouldn't be foolish enough to actively send people to deal with me, and Ogren aren't something he can command. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket, the Ogren were sent by Estepinian. Good, they're delivering the main material for Barbarian, right to my doorstep. Close black lens bracket. Ning Lu did not immediately attack. He said in a low voice, "Bukayo, take me to the nearest, narrow passage." The 2 behind Ning Lu were stunned upon hearing this, but Bukayo reacted quickly. He covered his mouth with his left hand. "Yes, boss." The boy gripped his dagger tightly in his right hand, his steps unwavering, not showing any abnormality. When they were still 2 kilometers from the dim passage, he sensed the passage, which was only 3.6 meters in diameter. After entering the passage and advancing 380 meters, Ning Lu issued a low command. "Lights out. Spread out to the sides." The elite gangsters who had grown during the conquest of the Handmansi Dome immediately reacted, spreading out to the sides and leaning against the metal wall. At the same time, gunshots rang out. Thanks to Lazy Reader for the reward. Chapter 12. Barbarian, please read and follow. Bright beams of light shot from laser guns handcrafted by the finest artisans in the Handmansi Dome. 2 beams, almost simultaneously, precisely pierced the eyes of an Ogren. "Oh no, that kid found us." The guide, who was at least a head taller than the other Ogrens and could count to 5, shouted loudly to the smarthead. "Charge! Kill him, or we'll all die." The smarthead waved the large club in his hand and shouted, "Smash! Meat!" As all the Ogrens excitedly shouted, "Smash!" and "Meat!" another large Ogren fell down. Ogrens have large strides. Walking with large strides is equivalent to a normal person running several steps, and when charging at high speed, they are like humanoid tanks charging during the Hive City War. But they were not faster than Ning Lu's bullets. Data such as terrain, distance, the Ogren's running speed, and body size were all incorporated as variables into his brain's calculations, and the model calculation was completed in an instant. 2 Ogrens were struck by 4 beams of light, as if they had run into them. The smarthead reacted. He used his left arm to shield his eyes and ran in a zigzag pattern. Indeed, he was not hit by the beams. The 2 guides, however, lost confidence. Ning Lu's marksmanship was too precise. They had heard the well-informed arbitrator mention that fatal injuries that would kill ordinary people multiple times were nothing to an Ogren. A laser gun hitting their tough hide would only create a bloody hole, they wouldn't fall. This was also why Dimitrov was so confident. But they found that every shot Ning Lu fired precisely hit the Ogren's vulnerable eyes. There was no difference whether they were standing still and ambushed or running at high speed. Thinking of Ning Lu's achievements over more than 20 work cycles, they lost their courage and turned to flee simultaneously. Cowards! Estepinian's guard captain glanced at them disdainfully, his heart filled with resentment. His master didn't trust them, so he hired brainless ogrins, relegating them to an auxiliary role. Open black lens bracket. Intelligence and discipline are the true essence of combat, close black lens bracket. The guard captain shouted, "Attack!" 20 elite guards pulled their triggers, unleashing a hail of bullets on Ning Lu. The next moment, the back of the heads of the two fleeing people exploded, and their bodies fell to the ground with thuds. The guard captain was greatly surprised that the young man had dodged the attacks rapidly while also raising his gun to shoot and kill two people. He suddenly ducked his head, trying to hide behind the abandoned machine tool. A guard member didn't hear the captain's voice and turned to look, only to see the captain's skull pierced, his eyes wide open as he fell to the ground, and then everything went black. By the time the smarthead reached the passageway, there were no living people behind him, but he didn't know or care. His mind was solely focused on smashing the target youth to death and returning for stake. The smarthead saw the youth draw his chainsword and wait for him at the passageway, so he immediately swung his large club to smash. With a loud bang, the large club smashed against the wall of the abandoned factory above the passageway. Ning Lu, by his positioning, enticed the smarthead into an obstructed attack, then seized the opportunity, leapt up, and brought the roaring blade down on the ogrin's thigh. Ah! The ogrin let out a miserable shriek. Nearly a quarter of the flesh on his thigh had been sliced off, and his bone was visible. "I'll smash you to death." This time, the smarthead was smarter. His large club didn't scrape the rock wall but struck the metal pipe in the passageway, instantly creating a large dent. Ning Lu moved around the ogrin, fully utilizing the passageway. The smarthead was as tall as the passageway, and swinging a club over a meter long, he was constrained everywhere. Each of his sword strikes landed on the ogrin's leg, gradually connecting. With a thud, the smarthead fell to the ground. Only then did the ogrin realize his legs were gone. Get two teams. One team carries him back, the other escorts. Remember, don't damage his arms. Yes, boss. Immediately, two teams came to the passageway. As they approached the half-ogrin at close range, they immediately felt the massive size of this big fellow. Even though they were the best fed in the lower nest, the ogrin was 4 or 5 times their width. After Ning Lu sent two teams to drag the main material back, he waved to Bukayo, who was looking at him with adoration. "Lead the way." "Yes, boss." Bukayo answered loudly, turning and puffing out his chest to lead the way. The team continued forward until a dense spiderweb appeared before them, at which point Bukayo reported quietly to his boss. "Boss, we're less than a kilometer from the abandoned dome where the spider's nest is. We've entered its alert range." Ning Lu nodded slightly. His superhuman senses had already penetrated layers of dense spiderwebs, perceiving the enormous creature. "Set it on fire." 10 gang members immediately threw their Molotov cocktails forward. Dozens of Promethium-enhanced Molotov cocktails immediately ignited a large fire, and the spiderwebs melted away at a visible rate. Incomplete, grayish-black corpses tumbled and smashed onto the ground. His subordinates' eyes stung, and they quickly put on their breathing masks. Only after their vision returned did they see the horrific scene on the ground. The ground was littered with white bones, none of them intact. Bukayo reminded Ning Lu with concern, "Boss, when I scouted before, I happened to encounter a black widow hunting. It's over 20 meters tall, and its lung sacs are as big as 3 or 4 adult humans. The sound of it inhaling and exhaling is piercingly sharp, making one dizzy. Those hit by the airflow will have their bones shattered, fall to the ground, and despairingly wait for it to come to them." Ning Lu glanced at Bukayo. The young man, witnessing such a terrifying scene, could still react calmly. He was a promising talent. He turned his gaze forward. The Black Widow was getting closer. He said to the 2 rat-catching teams, "Spread out and attack. Be careful not to attack the lung sacs." "Yes, boss." The rat-catching team immediately moved, hiding behind abandoned equipment. The rat-catching team members nervously watched as an enormous creature crawled along above them. Its giant lungs were only a few meters above the ground. A rat catcher's hand trembled, and he pulled the trigger. In his haste, he didn't aim, and the bullet hit the lung sac directly. Ning Lu thought, not good, but then realized the bullet had bounced off. The lung sac had only trembled slightly. Open black lens bracket is expected of a sequence 8 main potion ingredient. It's much tougher than ordinary lungs. Close black lens bracket. The lung spider's 14 eyes gleamed with cold light. Its lung sac suddenly inhaled, and it was as if a hurricane swept through the passageway. Just as the lung spider was about to exhale the strong air from its lungs, a gunshot suddenly rang out, and a beam of light pierced one of its eyes. The other materials were already gathered. There was no need to capture the lung spider alive, only to obtain its lung sacs. The lung spider's remaining 13 eyes all turned to the young man below. As soon as it met the young man's dark eyes, its body immediately trembled. Instinct told it that the young man was more dangerous than all the others combined. With a loud boom, Bukayo and the others seemed to hear cannon fire, and the entire passageway shook violently. They looked at their boss with concern, then saw the terrifying shockwave shatter the abandoned equipment. "Boss!" Bukayo cried out in sorrow. Ever since he fled to the lower nest, he had struggled to survive, eating one meal and starving for 3 days. Until Ning Lu appeared, though it was still hard, he could eat his fill. If the boss wasn't there, no one could control this large group of people, and he didn't want to live like before again. Just then, a shining beam of light illuminated Bukayo's eyes, and also illuminated his gloomy heart. Another of the Black Widow's eyes was pierced. The boss wasn't dead. The light flickered rapidly, and when the smoke cleared, Bukayo saw his boss's body again, and the lung spider had lost all its eyes. It took a deep breath and blindly released shockwaves in all directions. Hit its spider legs, Ning Lu shouted, and everyone pulled their triggers, raining bullets down on the Black Widow. The blind Black Widow struggled in vain, causing the death of 4 rat catchers. Ning Lu cut off the lung sacs with his chainsword, had 4 rat catchers carry them, and returned to the magneto steel plant. He immediately began to concoct the barbarian potion. The psionic crystal was thrown into the Lurzvort, and the furnace immediately erupted with blinding light, then the middle steel quickly melted into molten steel. After he threw in the lung spider, the furnace made a series of popping sounds. Open black lens bracket. It's not going to explode, is it? Close black lens bracket. Ning Lu thought with concern, but his hands were quick, and he threw in the smarthead's arm. The popping sounds immediately disappeared, and a black, brilliant light burst forth. He waited for the light to dissipate and then scooped out the black gelatinous substance from inside. It was still a single, integrated whole, with no residue left in the furnace. Ning Lu directly tilted his head back and drank the sequence 8 inches barbarian potion. Chapter 13, Gene Awakening. Ning Lu's body crackled, stretching and growing at a visible rate. In a single breath, his steel armor was torn apart, able to cover only his vital parts. In an instant, his body became as tall as an adult, but much more robust. The growth continued, and at the same time, a torrent of information surged into Ning Lu's mind like a tsunami. In the vast ocean, the information of the barbarian flowed in like rivers joining the sea. What surged like an ocean was the knowledge within his gene seed Primarch, different from the last time. The knowledge in this ocean was not limited to the weaknesses of various races and machinery, it also included knowledge of combat, the art of war, and even the crystallization of human civilization within the rivers. Ning Lu's body inflated like a balloon. When he opened his eyes, he found that the furnace in front of him had shrunk. Open black lens bracket. No. It's not that it shrunk, but that I've become a giant. The barbarian gained 3 extraordinary abilities, the most core of which was physical enhancement. The extraordinary individual would possess terrifying strength and a powerful physique. However, as a gene seed Primarch, I am different from ordinary people. The power of the potion activated the latent power in my gene seed Primarch, and the combination of these 2 powers transformed my body. Although it was the potion that catalyzed the complete awakening of the gene seed Primarch, the core driving force of this transformation was the latent power within the gene seed Primarch body itself. Ning Lu continued to sort through all the abilities he had gained from this enhancement. The second extraordinary ability of the barbarian was spiritual enhancement. His spirit became tougher. Stacked with the spiritual enhancement from the gene seed Primarch's awakening, he now possessed an unbreakable will, his spirit as firm as a rock. The barbarian's third extraordinary ability was lung enhancement and howl. Howl involves taking a deep breath, transforming and amplifying it through the specially enhanced lung structure, and then emitting a furious roar. The ultrasonic waves would cause enemies to become dizzy and induce mental fear. This ability is not in my memory, it should be closely related to the lung spider's lung sacs. It was only at this moment that Ning Lu understood the evolution pursued by the disordered country. After successfully breaking free from the seal on the western continent of Blue Star, the Source Essence brought him to the Warhammer world to collect rarer materials and prepare potions with stronger extraordinary characteristics, making each sequence stronger than before. Even high sequence materials might be at the level of Star God shards, which would meet the requirements for the Source Essence's fundamental transformation. Ultimately, when he ascends to Old One and assimilates the disordered country, they will jointly complete the final evolution. After sorting out the barbarian's extraordinary abilities, he began to organize his gene seed Primarch memories. The Emperor created the gene seed Primarchs as war machines, so most of the knowledge he gained was related to war and military affairs, with architecture, art, and other aspects accounting for only a small portion. Even so, he could be called a scholar in various fields far exceeding the average level. After organizing all his gains, Ning Lu looked at the armor that could only cover his vital parts, a wry smile appearing on his face. It's not without drawbacks, the armor has become a chest guard and a groin guard. Ning Lu picked up the short-range walkie-talkie and ordered the craftsman to prepare modular armor. Immediately, he took out moonstone and other materials from the disordered country and continued to prepare the sleepless potion. After one work cycle, Ning Lu put on his new armor. Calling it armor, it was more accurately a steel mesh pieced together from Miguel steel. In such haste, it was impossible for the craftsman to develop a superhuman armor, let alone one that could allow a demigod's body to exert its full capabilities. Ning Lu didn't care, as long as it could temporarily cover his body, it was fine. True armor would likely only be obtainable after returning to the Imperium. He ordered Bukayo to come to the control room to see him, then took the prepared, sleepless potion and headed there. Arriving at the control room door, Bukayo was already respectfully waiting. He was greatly surprised to see a giant approaching. His first reaction was the ogre he had encountered before, and he subconsciously tightened his grip on his weapon. Immediately, Bukayo felt something was wrong. The giant in front of him was much taller than even the tallest among those barbarians, exceeding 4 meters in height. Walking through a passage designed for mortals, he had to duck his head to proceed. The young man looked up and saw the giant's unarmored neck. His skin was not as rough as an ogre's, it was as lustrous as jade. There was also a peculiar light about him, like the deities of old night myths and legends before the Mars priests arrived. Bukayo felt an inexplicable force compelling him to kneel, to worship the descending deity. Bukayo, a majestic voice like thunder emanated from the deity before him, "Come in with me." The young man stared blankly as the deity pushed open the control room door with one finger and bent down to enter. A thought exploded in his mind, and he murmured uncertainly, "Boss, it's me." Ning Lu managed to find a comfortable standing spot. "Come in." Bukayo's mind was full of questions. How did the boss turn into a giant in less than one shift? Is he a descending deity? He must be. He saw the cruel hive city and came to save us. Bukayo suddenly shivered. He quickly walked into the control room, closed the door, and reverently bowed to Ning Lu. Boss, no. Deity. As he frantically searched for a suitable address, the thunderous voice sounded. I am not a deity. In this era, the Imperium adhered to the imperial truth. Considering that Bukayo was someone he wanted to cultivate, Ning Lu had to correct his address. Bukayo paused. He quickly searched his old family library clicks for a suitable word. After a few seconds, he tentatively said, I pledge my loyalty to you. I should address you as my lord. Acceptable. Many people addressed Gene Seed Primarchs with such terms, and it would not cause any trouble. This is your reward. Ning Lu spread his large hand. Bukayo walked over as if on a pilgrimage, reverently taking the metal cup with both hands. Drink it. Hearing the command, Bukayo did not hesitate for a moment. He tilted his head back and poured the dark liquid into his mouth. The young man plunged into an eternal night. He watched his body below, and the towering, majestic figure, with terror and helplessness. He met profound eyes, deeper than the night, and a majestic voice echoed in his ears. Do as I say. In your consciousness, simulate an object falling. Under Ning Lu's guidance, Bukayo mastered meditation and psychic vision. As an extraordinary being, he became even more devout. Open black lens bracket. Such power could only be bestowed by a deity. The potion he drank was merely a medium. Close black lens bracket. Thousands of elites followed behind Ning Lu, looking at his mountain-like, majestic back with worship and reverence in their eyes. They felt that now was different from before. In the past, they lived for survival. Now, they followed a deity for some noble cause. Certainly, they could not yet comprehend it, and their limited vocabulary could not express it, but they could feel it. Regarding potions, some might say that Tzeentch obtains knowledge from the minds of the extraordinary individuals he cultivates. Let me give an example, like divination. Even if Tzeentch acquires all the knowledge, he cannot replicate it for his followers. One can only gain extraordinary abilities by drinking the potion, not by so-called knowledge. If you have the knowledge but no potion, you can't create a diviner, because only Ning Lu has the potion recipe. He can grant his followers divination abilities, but that's a different system from extraordinary individuals. To give another analogous example, it's like teaching a mortal all the skills of an Astartes. Without the body, it's useless. You know the potion knowledge, but if you don't drink the potion and gain extraordinary abilities, you can't use them either. Sequence potions continuously transform the extraordinary. For a detailed explanation, please refer to Chapter 18. Chapter 14, Invading the Upper Nest. Bukayo had gone ahead 2 stellar hours earlier. As a son of the night, he fully integrated into the darkness, immediately sensing an all-around enhancement of his physical strength, mind, and spirituality. He keenly found a secluded and deep passage, and with his youthful body, he squeezed into a passage that would not accommodate ordinary people. Bukayo carefully moved the power room's grate, nimbly jumped onto the enemy's shoulder below, and steadily plunged his sharp short knife into his eye. The scream attracted the enemy's attention, and footsteps sounded. Bukayo's eyes shone brightly. He leapt up and pulled down the power switch. The deeper the night, the stronger he became. This was his hunting ground, his dedication ritual site after receiving the bestowal. Ning Lu smelled the scent of blood from the small building where the arbitrator was located, even when he was still several kilometers away. When he was 1 kilometer from the main gate, he stepped forward and charged. With his previous experience of digesting the lawyer potion, he confirmed that his digestion progress had already reached 1/3 after just drinking the barbarian potion. Ning Lu's core understanding of the barbarian was to forcibly break rules, not to be confined to a barbaric image. This aligned with his plan to unify Vostonia with the Gene Seed Primarch's military might after awakening his genetic memory. Of course, if breaking rules simultaneously involved barbaric methods and left the same impression, the digestion effect should be even better. Thus, Ning Lu, like a human tank, directly crashed into the entire squad of guards temporarily reinforcing the gate. A distance of 1 kilometer was too short for him. He couldn't even accelerate to his fastest speed before crashing into the crowd. 8 people had just raised their guns, but before they could aim, their arms were already bent like noodles, their chests collapsed, and they tumbled several times in the air. A loud bang momentarily cleared their blurred consciousness. Their last sight was of the entire wall of the arbitrator's office on the 3rd floor of the small building collapsing. The gang members saw it more clearly. Their master took a running start, leapt up, broke through the wall, and lifted the arbitrator who had once been so high above them. Dimitrov's head broke through the roof, his vision blurred. "You are," the arbitrator's pupils suddenly constricted. He recognized the identity of the giant in front of him from his deep pupils and somewhat familiar face. "Ning Lu, how did you become like this?" Seeing Ning Lu not answer, his consciousness grew increasingly blurred, and he struggled to speak. "You killed me, Lord Estepinian, will not let you go." "Thank you for the information," Ning Lu said, twisting Dimitrov's neck. He picked up the arbitrator's broadcast device with his fingers, opened the dome broadcast channel, and turned to look at his subordinates. "People say that lower nest people entering the upper nest is like ascension, and even the lower nest people themselves believe this, holding no hope. Is it truly impossible? Now we are going to break all of this, not relying on the favor of the upper nest lords." The thunderous voice of the Gene Seed Primarch shook the entire dome. "I, Ning Lu, will lead you into the upper nest." Bukayo, covered in blood, pulled a short knife from a guard's lower back, his eyes glowing. Just one work cycle ago, he thought he would never have the chance to return to the upper nest. Now he would return to the upper nest with a new identity, as a sleepless, and even more so, as Ning Lu's son of the night. Workers of the Handman Sea Dome picked up their weapons and tools, walked out of the factories, and merged into the crowd. The captain of the guards at the cargo elevator leading to the upper nest shouted, "Close the door." Amidst the dull sound of the gate being pulled, he quickly ran towards the control room. Only there could he send news of the lower nest rebellion to the other side of the vertical elevator. After running 2 steps, a gunshot sounded from behind him. Rolslev shot and killed the guard pushing the gate, leading 100 elites into the cargo area. Ning Lu had entrusted him with the important task of seizing the elevator to the upper nest, and he would certainly not disappoint his lord. He still didn't know if Ning Lu was a god as others called him, but he would no longer use the term, boss. Since Ning Lu denied being a god, he decided to address him as, Lord, for now. During his time following him, he had also realized that what his lord cared more about was loyalty and the ability to complete tasks without compromise. Ning Lu boarded the cargo elevator alone. In the other 7 elevators, each carried a 10-person elite squad. People gripping their weapons felt their bodies rapidly ascending. They saw elevators rising or descending around them, spiderweb-like pipes, and dazzling lights flickering in the smoke. They couldn't help but exclaim, "So this is what a hive city is like. I only just realized today. Looking now, the dome is like an ant." Upper Nest, Cargo Area E1989. The station master saw the lights illuminate in Area F17. He frowned and said with some dissatisfaction, "The people from the Handman Sea Dome are becoming increasingly unruly. This is the 3rd time in 5 cycles that they haven't given advance notice. Even if productivity has significantly increased, they shouldn't always arrive unannounced. Lord Station Master, I heard that Dimitrov is about to be promoted to the upper nest because of his excellent performance and continuously increasing product submissions, and..." The statistician beside him lowered his voice, "and, I heard he got involved with a collateral branch of the royal family. He's lucky." A Ning Lu appeared in the dome. "I heard he defeated Golovin, the golden medal lawyer. Managing a dome's industrial complex is a waste of his talent." The station master said enviously. He understood Ning Lu's choice even less. He heard that he refused offers from the Fen family and other major families, and returned to that rotten place in the lower nest. He shook his head, picked up the communicator, and switched to the Fen family's communication channel. "Someone from the Handman Sea Dome has arrived. Send someone to pick up the goods. I apologize for the trouble. I'm on my way." The station master hung up the communication. Thinking of the money he would soon receive for the trouble, his mood improved significantly. He leaned back and looked at the monitoring screen. The next instant, his smile abruptly vanished. He widened his eyes and exclaimed in surprise. "What is that?" The statistician leaned over. "Is that an ogryn?" The station master shook his head, seeing the giant grab a guard, swing him around, and knock down a whole group. He frantically picked up the communicator, just about to switch communication channels. There was a loud bang, followed by the sound of shattering glass. The station master was horrified to find that the giant had thrown the guard at him. Even more terrifying, the guard, after flying dozens of meters through the air, actually smashed through the bulletproof glass. He and the statistician had no time to dodge and were knocked down by the flying guard, passing out. Ning Lu, previously a lawyer specially hired by the Fen family, had traveled to and from the upper nest by passenger train. This was his first time stepping into a cargo station. But the moment he rushed out of the elevator, he grasped his surroundings and pinpointed the location of the control room. Ning Lu gave orders to Rolslev, "Go and meet the others and bring them up." Immediately, he looked up, searching among the nest towers piercing through the clouds, where the true power class of the Hive City resided, the major noble families. Ning Lu had ascended one nest tower, that of the Fen family. Now he was looking for the nest tower of the Bolslov family. Immediately, he locked onto two equally tall nest towers. Evidently, the other belonged to the servants of the Omniscia. Chapter 15. Howard's risky decision. "My lord, Bolslov's nest tower is in that direction." Bukayo came to Ning Lu's side, pointing to the right front. "My lord, my full name is Bukayo Arshaven. My family was massacred by Bolslov king on trumped-up charges. In truth, he merely coveted my family's printing business. I could only flee to the lower nest. If I hadn't met you, I'd still be worrying about food." Ning Lu nodded slightly. No wonder the youth possessed a maturity beyond his years. He had originated from the upper nest and received a good education. After the cargo elevator rapidly transported 840 of his subordinates to the upper nest, Ning Lu suddenly heard the sound of vehicles. He immediately grabbed a nearby metal pillar and charged in the direction of the sound. As Ning Lu leapt and ran, he displayed an agility incongruous with his gigantic stature. Obstacles like containers in the cargo area did not impede his progress in the slightest. He leapt into the air, swinging the dry metal pillar in his hand, and sent the lead vehicle of the convoy flying. The tumbling truck crashed into two other trucks. When Bukayo first arrived at the scene, he saw more than a dozen trucks, all overturned by their master. Even though he had anticipated it, he was still stunned into place by the sight. Ning Lu realized he could not wait any longer. His advantage was not in troop numbers, but in time. Once the enemy reacted, the forces they could mobilize would be thousands of times greater than the subordinates awaiting transport. More critically, they could also seek aid from the Mechanicus. Ning Lu did not want to exhaust all his loyal forces in the conquest of Tezvok Hive City. This was merely the beginning. He issued orders to Rolslev, who had rushed over, "Leave 8 squads to guard the elevator entrance. The rest of you, follow me and attack the nest tower." "Yes, Lord." Rolslev immediately complied. If someone had told him a month ago that he would attack the royal family's nest tower with fewer than 800 men, he would have laughed at their insanity. But if that person was Ning Lu, a giant as mighty as a deity, he firmly believed it could be achieved. Just as Ning Lu led his team away, a luxurious sedan, with a golden lightning emblem painted on its side, arrived belatedly. Kaminsky, newly promoted from private butler to Fen family butler, leaned back in the leather seat, resting with his eyes closed. His private secretary suddenly let out a startled cry, "Lord Butler, something's happened at the freight station." "What?" Kaminsky opened his eyes in displeasure, then immediately saw flames burning ahead. "Damn it, retreat quickly." The butler secretly congratulated himself for letting the cargo convoy depart first because he was preparing dinner, thus narrowly escaping disaster. Moments later, Howard received the news. He immediately switched to the family intelligence officer's communication channel. "The family's cargo convoy has been attacked. I need you to find out what happened immediately." He then switched to the guard squad channel, assemble the family's armed forces. After hanging up the communication, he frowned deeply. Brelin. No. He's a useless. Estepinian, possibly. It could even be the royal family themselves, seizing property. It wouldn't be the first time they've done it. Perhaps the fifth arbiter is just a puppet Bolslav is using on the surface. The blonde noble youth stood up and paced around his desk a few times. Just then, a beeping sound rang out. Howard took a deep breath before connecting to the intelligence officer's communication. Lord Earl, my men retrieved surveillance footage near the freight station and found a force of fewer than 1,000 men rapidly marching. They have already annihilated several Hive City Guard units. Is their target our nest tower? No, Lord, judging by their route, their target is the royal family's nest tower. Howard was stunned. He asked in surprise. What? He suspected he had just hallucinated. Only the most insane would attack the royal family's nest tower. He recalled seeing in his family's history that a certain family once attacked the nest tower with over 60,000 of their elite, yet they couldn't even breach the nest tower. Now, the attacking force numbered only 1,000. Lord, their leader is very unusual. I have never seen such a tall human. I think you should take a look. Howard took out his data slate to view the image sent by the intelligence officer. His azure pupils contracted. He had thought it was just a 2-meter-tall strongman, but now, seeing the image, even an Ogren was much shorter than him. When he saw the majestic face of the man after slow-motion processing, he suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. In Howard's mind, a handsome youthful face, magnified, overlapped with the giant's face, and he cried out in surprise. Ning Lu. How did he become like this? After the blonde noble recognized Ning Lu in astonishment, he was amazed to see him slaughtering the Hive City Guard units with a fighting style completely different from what he remembered. He directly crashed into a high-speed vehicle, shattering the speeder and scattering metal debris everywhere. He lifted a guard member as if picking up a chick, flung him into the air, and smashed him onto an automatized bee equipped with a lumbering gun. Several words flashed through Howard's mind: simple, brutal, efficient, ruthless, merciless, unstoppable. Ning Lu was not a man, he was a war god. Howard suddenly snapped out of his shock. This was not the time for awe. The key was how the Fender family should react. Open black lens bracket. Even if Ning Lu's armed uprising fails, the Bolslav family will suffer significant losses. Considering their methods, they will certainly shift the losses by seizing the properties of other families, which is also a deterrent tactic after unrest. By backtracking from his route, Handman C. Dome could be pinpointed, and I would be implicated. Even my previous request for his legal assistance would be connected. Close black lens bracket. Howard clenched his fists. He realized that the Bolslav family would use him as a scapegoat, claiming he provided intelligence to Ning Lu, or even that he was the mastermind. The truth never mattered, as long as the fact that the lower nest people invaded the nest tower was covered up, the royal family's prestige could be maintained. Howard clenched his fists, making a risky decision: to join Ning Lu's forces and attack the Bolslav family, who were bleeding the Fender family dry. Ning Lu gave him the courage to decide. Within the less than 4 minutes he watched the footage, the giant had actually broken through a street's defenses, and he was only 5.2 kilometers from the royal family's nest tower. As Howard led the Fender family guard squad in vehicles towards the Bolslav family's nest tower, Ning Lu also encountered trouble for the first time. 4 fixed gun turrets opened fire, their devastating mortar barrages covering his forces. Amidst deafening explosions, more than a dozen battle-hardened gang members were torn apart by the shockwave, like shattered sandbags, dismembered. Disperse. Find cover. Ning Lu roared, charging towards the gun turrets amidst the hail of bullets. Chapter 16. The Death of Estepinian. The twin-linked laser cannons on both sides of each mortar emplacement fired simultaneously, and the 16 beams transformed into threads in Ning Lu's mind, yet he danced like a spider on a web. With a slight shift of his body, he could evade several incoming beams. A swift charge allowed him to avoid a covering volley. Fire. For the love of God, fire with all your might. The commander of the Nest Tower Guard force, clad in a crimson military uniform, bellowed. Only then could he conquer the fear in his heart, only then could he stop thinking that a god had descended to punish his sins. Within the fortifications, tens of thousands of various firearms were aimed at the giant's figure. Ning Lu took a deep breath, and gunpowder smoke filled his lungs along with the air. His lungs expanded and contracted hundreds of times in an instant, and the inhaled air spiraled, accelerated, rotated, and compressed, transforming into the purest ultrasonic waves. When the ultrasonic waves were expelled from his mouth through the gene seed Primarch's superhuman organs, vocal cords, and throat, they not only showed no attenuation but were even slightly enhanced. Roar. The howl, for an instant, even drowned out the second round of mortar shelling. The front row defenders in the fortifications simultaneously heard an inhuman howl in their minds. They clutched their heads in pain, then fainted. The defenders in the back row also bled from their noses and mouths, their bodies swaying. Even the defenders operating the twin-linked laser cannons inside the metal fortress saw stars, bled from their ears, and were plagued by an ear-splitting hum. Ning Lu leapt, his body swaying slightly, but he stabilized himself amidst the explosion's shockwave. The smoke and roar did not affect his senses. He noticed another convoy rapidly approaching. Ning Lu immediately broke into a sprint, charging towards the nearest defensive gun turret. Still more than 20 meters away, he leapt violently, his legs together, kicking towards the mortar and the pouring point of the fortifications. Relying on the life support system of his master-crafted power armor, Howard, who had recovered from his dizziness, saw this shocking scene as his vision returned to normal. He shivered. If Ning Lu had struck him with a single punch, even the armor that the Mechanicus Wise One proudly called a gift from the Omniscia would not have withstood such an impact. Howard realized that the era belonging to Boleslav was about to end, and he would become a meritorious minister of the new kingdom, gaining immense benefits in the new reshuffle and becoming a wise patriarch of the Fend family, praised for generations. He excitedly switched to the command channel and issued orders to the Fend family's armed personnel. Move, according to the previous battle plan, lock onto your respective targets. Upon hearing the fire command, use your weapons to kill the Boleslav family's scum. The red-robed commander shouted loudly, shooting 5 deserters with his laser pistol to barely maintain the morale of the defenders. Just as the defensive line was on the verge of collapse, he saw the new patriarch of the Fend family approaching with his subordinates for support. Lord Earl, thank you for your timely reinforcement. Boleslav King will surely be pleased with your performance in this crisis. Howard scanned his subordinates, finding that they had integrated into the defensive line according to the battle plan, and the unsuspecting defenders welcomed their arrival. He raised his left arm, and as the heavy logging gun fired its bullets, he issued the command, attack. Over the communication channel. Immediately, gunshots rang out, and beams of light flashed. Ning Lu swung the cannon barrel, smashing 2 twin-linked laser cannons, and simultaneously noticed the sudden change. He instantly locked onto Howard's position, recognizing his former temporary employer. Ning Lu immediately made a guess. He strode towards Howard, swinging the cannon barrel casually, and one defensive point after another collapsed, metal plates crushing the defenders inside into pulp. Howard looked at Ning Lu. Compared to the images, he felt a mountain-like oppressive force and could understand the defenders in his peripheral vision whose morale had collapsed and were fleeing in all directions. He immediately knelt on one knee, formally pledging allegiance to Ning Lu according to the Vostonia oath of loyalty. I, Howard Fend, swear by my honor and blood. According to the Muscari tradition of Vostonia, he would have pledged loyalty to the visiting Boleslav king at a banquet held during the night Kyle shift. At this moment, Howard had no liege lord to serve. He, who had not violated noble honor and oaths, pledged loyalty to the true king. To Lord Ning Lu, the new king of Tezvok, I offer my unconditional loyalty and obedience. I will fight for your glory and act according to your will. Ning Lu stopped before Howard, and his majestic voice resonated. I accept your allegiance. The Fend family's guards joined the ranks, further boosting the morale of the gang members. Not just them, the noble lords of the upper nest also saw that a god had descended, and they were bound to win. Ning Lu charged into the nest tower first. He crashed through the main gate, passed through the entrance hall, and then encountered resolute resistance. He noticed that even though the mortals before him looked at him with fear, they did not scatter and flee. Ning Lu knew that besides the royal family, the nest tower also housed vassal families who had served them for generations, whose loyalty far surpassed that of the feudal nobility. Open black lens bracket breaking rules with violence and establishing a new order is destined to be accompanied by bloodshed, close black lens bracket. The thought surfaced in his mind, and he immediately felt his spirituality become more vibrant. He advanced with a hunter's stride, leaving a crimson path behind him as he ascended the marble staircase. Alarms pierced the sky, echoing throughout the nest tower. For the first time in thousands of years, Bolslav faced an external attack. Nobles, with their private soldiers, surged into the passages to resist the assault. Ning Lu climbed steadily upwards. His speed of advance was equivalent to his speed of attack. Compared to the defensive positions he had encountered earlier, the resistance he now faced was much weaker. Meanwhile, at the top of the nest tower, the armor baron nervously helped Bolslav King put on his armor. He hadn't worn this armor in decades, and squeezing his bulky body into it was a difficult task. The foreign minister beside him nervously reported to the king. Wise one Kaminsky replied that he is gathering the Holy Guard, estimated to arrive in 3 hours and 25 minutes. Please hold the nest tower. Damn it, tell him I can't even hold it for an hour. Bolslav King watched the defense minister being crushed to death by the giant on the video screen, screaming in horror and rage. A giant was climbing the spiral marble staircase at an extremely fast pace. With every blink of an eye, a level of the nest tower fell. The family's elites were no match for him, their bodies tumbling and falling in heaps. Suddenly, the giant stopped, pausing before a person dressed in luxurious clothes. Bolslav King searched his memory and confirmed that it was Estepinian. He only remembered this collateral branch of the family because he served as the fifth arbiter. Though greedy, he was very sensible. Every month, every festival, every time he had a gain, he would offer gifts. He also had a bit of cleverness, helping him conceal things that might displease the tech priests. Just as Bolslav King recalled this competent lackey, he saw the giant pick up Estepinian, and a booming sound echoed. I should thank you. Without you, I wouldn't have ascended the nest tower so quickly. Seeing Estepinian's neck twisted, Bolslav King felt no pity, only hatred for his foolishness. Damn it, this idiot. Such a person should only be won over, not made an enemy. If I could recruit him, all of Vostonia would be mine. Damn it, why did he provoke him? Chapter 17. Killing Bolslav King. Bolslav King hastily donned the exquisite power armor, a gift from Kivir the Wise to the first generation of kings. He found courage in the multi-barreled laser mounted on his arm. He remembered that when he was 18, he put on his armor and tested its power on the training ground. A single volley had destroyed a Miguel steel training dummy. Bolslav King shouted to his personal guards, "Follow me. Kill the traitors." Immediately, he strode towards the palace gate. Just 3 steps out, the gate was smashed open with a loud bang. The king's guards charged at Ning Lu. Bolslav King raised his arms, finally finding an opportunity. He mercilessly pulled the trigger, and dozens of beams continuously shot towards the gate. The beams, capable of piercing armored vehicles, penetrated the back of several loyal guards' heads. He felt no sadness. As long as he could kill the demonic and terrifying enemy, everything was worth it. Bolslav King saw 2 beams hit the giant, piercing his armor. His eyes widened. The giant did not fall, nor was he even pierced by the laser. After the dazzling light dissipated, through the 2 holes, he only saw that his lustrous skin was somewhat dim. Open black lens bracket monster, close black lens bracket. The next moment, Ning Lu flashed before Bolslav King, punching him more than 10 meters away. When Howard and the others climbed to the top floor of the palace, they only saw Bolslav King embedded in the wall, becoming a living sculpture. The golden-haired nobleman was stunned for a few seconds before he came to his senses. A new era had arrived, and as one of the earliest to surrender, he should let the new king see his value. My lord, if you wish to control Tezvok Hive, you must win the support of the Mechanicus. Ning Lu saw that he was not nervous, and he had a guess in his heart. He activated psychic vision. Through practice, after his genetic awakening, he tried to integrate psychic vision into his superhuman senses. Without tapping his glabella as usual, he successfully activated psychic vision after 1 second through psychological suggestion. You seem to have a plan. Tell me about it. My lord, what the Mechanicus truly cares about is the industrial output of Tezvok Hive, and the share of resources and products they can submit. The Fen family has always had close ties with the Mechanicus. I am willing to represent you in discussions with Kaminsky. Ning Lu saw that Howard's aura was red with enthusiasm and excitement, and white with brightness and positivity, which matched the emotional characteristics of someone who had just pledged allegiance and was eager to prove himself. Very well, you shall represent me in discussions with the Mechanicus. Ning Lu and Howard quickly established the basic principles. Howard would be responsible for negotiating the terms, and Ning Lu would finalize them. He deactivated psychic vision, took the communicator Howard handed him, and after confirming the communication channel, he spoke. Order your subordinates to enter the defensive positions on the outskirts of the Nest Tower and establish a front line. Due to Howard's defection and the collapse of morale, several turrets were still usable. His confidants currently lacked the ability to operate these precise weapons, and the loyalty of the Fen family still needed to be tested, so Ning Lu decided to have them handle the outer defense. As you command, my lord. After Howard acknowledged the order, he immediately led his family guards out of the Nest Tower, and then used the defensive positions to establish a defense. Bukayo and Rolslev came before him, the short blade in the youth's hand stained with blood. Having completed his revenge, he spoke. My lord, all the remnants of the Bolslov family have been executed by me. Only Prince Robert of the Bolslov family, he is not in Vostonia. I interrogated his wife. The Sea of Melody, which supplies food to Vostonia, suffered an alien invasion. Wise one Kaminsky personally came to visit, and eventually Robert led the family's armed forces there. By the time this prince returned, Ning Lu had already gained control of the situation. He was more concerned about the alien threat. Alien pirates. My lord, she doesn't know the details, only that wise one Kaminsky requested it, which is why Robert personally led the team. Ning Lu nodded, thinking that to learn about the alien situation, he would have to inquire later. Rolslev then said, My lord, the Nest Tower has been sealed off, and the cleansing is underway. Ning Lu then ordered Rolslev to establish defenses and clear out the remaining enemies within the Nest Tower, and then spoke to Bukayo. You act alone and scout the upper nest situation. As you command, my lord. The two also found communicators on the bodies. After exchanging communication channels, he ordered them to leave. He then returned to the disordered country, in the empty palace. Ning Lu suddenly felt that his body also had that light, floating sensation. Open black lens bracket could it be? After I advanced to sequence 8, my body can also enter the disordered country, close black lens bracket. The next moment, his body disappeared from the palace. Upon arriving in the disordered country, Ning Lu immediately discovered that the entire Black Mist realm had undergone another change. On the other side of the black flagstones beneath his feet, deep within the swirling mist, there seemed to be 33 layers of space hidden. Each layer of space had many buildings dimly visible. In the highest layer of space, there was a majestic and magnificent palace. He tried to go to the space on the other side, and immediately his body arrived at the lowest layer of space on the other side. He tried to go to a higher level, but his body did not move. Clearly, he had not gained permission for that other area. Ning Lu arrived before a stone house, comparing the space he was in before with the current one. Open black lens bracket. This place is more real. Time flows, there is a concept of space, and even the buildings are real. The other side is like a shadow of this place, more illusory, unaffected by physical laws, more ethereal, boundless and infinite. Close black lens bracket. With a thought, he immediately returned to the real world. Open black lens bracket. The changes in the disordered country can be considered a sanctuary. My physical body entered the true realm. Close black lens bracket. Ning Lu's black eyes sparkled, and countless brilliant ideas surged in his mind. He decided to try them later to determine if his ideas were feasible. With a thought, he came before the blasphemous stone slab on the shadow side and indeed found another change. All 22 pathways, sequence 9 potion formulas had been unlocked, except for 2, Abyss, and Bound 1. The sequence 8 potion formulas, except for Barbarian, were not introduced. He focused his attention on his own pathway's sequence 7 potion formula. Sequence 7 inches Bribers, potion formula. Main ingredients: 1 Night Shard, 1 Shadowfiend. Auxiliary ingredients: 1100 ml Black Ros Fuerte, 1 Light Sculpture of a Space Monkey. Extraordinary abilities. Upon seeing this, Ning Lu couldn't help but frown. He realized it would be impossible to advance to sequence 7 in a short time. This was not only because the 3 materials on the stone slab, apart from Lursvort, were dim, but also because of his understanding of these 3 materials. Among them, Shadowfiend is in some sense the easiest to find. They live in the void and are attracted to areas that resonate with the warp. If a warp journey were undertaken, the ship would certainly attract Shadowfiends, but the tech priest and technicians responsible for the warp engine and engine vents would rarely notice them, as they are only 80 mm in diameter. Space Monkey are creations of the Old Ones. They live in large families of a dozen or so individuals, roaming randomly throughout the galaxy, their only goal being survival. Night Shard is a psychic substance possessed by the Flow. Imperial diviners will use them as focal points for divination in the future. The Flow established a nomadic empire in the Misty Star region. Like the Space Monkey, finding them requires a bit of luck. Ning Lu felt a slight disappointment and thought to himself. Open black lens bracket. After conquering Vostonia, cooperate with the Mechanicus, leave the planet, expand to the surrounding areas, and collect potion materials along the way. Close black lens bracket. He left the disordered country and returned to the real world, walking to the wall. When Ning Lu removed the ring from Bolslav King, he couldn't fully control his surging power, and he pulled off his hand as if pulling a radish with its soil. Chapter 18. Successful Experiment, Eliminating Hidden Dangers. Ning Lu searched through the luxurious palace, his gaze sweeping over the vibrant murals. The crystal chandeliers overhead illuminated the palace as if it were day. Ning Lu strode across the soft carpets laid on the marble floor, and by sensing the airflow and the reaction of tapping the walls, he finally found a hidden door behind an oil painting in the study. Open black lens bracket. Apparently, this greedy king did not trust others. Close black lens bracket. He pressed the ring into the corresponding circular wall recess. Ning Lu sensed a series of complex transmission mechanisms moving within the wall, and then a secret door slowly opened before him. He stepped inside, descending along a spiral passage. After 100 steps, he arrived at a platform, at the end of which was a sentry, identical to the one he had seen in the Fend family. Ning Lu took a step back with his right leg, poised to charge forward. Red light flickered in the sentry's eyes, and an urgent alarm sounded. From the thick metal railings on both sides, 3 copper pipes extended from each. They simultaneously sprayed torrents of scorching flames and rotated rapidly, covering a radiation angle of 120 degrees. Ning Lu calculated the evasion route in an instant. He leapt out, landing precisely at the intersection of the first and second rows. For less than a second, this spot was not yet covered by the molten flow. His second step landed precisely at the blind spot between the second and third sets. With his third step, he had already rushed before the sentry and directly crashed into him. Having served the Bolslav king's family for thousands of years, the sentry, whose alloy circuits had begun to age under the erosion of time, could finally rest. Immediately, Ning Lu smashed through the alloy door and burst into the treasury. As soon as he entered the treasury, he was drawn to a furnace in the center. Ning Lu walked up to the furnace and found red text on its gilded body. One side consisted of the language of technology, made of 0s and 1s, while the other side was in the local Low Gothic script of Vostonia. Ning Lu first noticed the furnace's specifications, 19 meters high, with a cross-sectional diameter of 11 meters. He did not need to climb the operating ladder, he simply reached out and opened the furnace door on the side where the language of technology and Vostonian Low Gothic intersected, and touched it. The fuel hearth, where promethium was placed, was icy cold, and there was not a speck of dirt on the infusion tubes. He went to the other side, opened the furnace door, and there was not a trace of grime inside either. Ning Lu continued to examine the text on the furnace body. Praise the God of all machines, the material used for this furnace is the first batch of steel obtained by Vostonia after being enlightened by the Omniscia. Specially presented to the kings of Vostonia's hive cities, as a reward for the servants of the Omniscia. The bottom corner was stamped with a steel seal, and the signature next to it was a familiar name, Mars Sage, Kivier. Open black lens bracket. So this furnace was built so large to demonstrate the friendship between the machine cult and the various hive city royal families. However, it is just right for my use. My body can enter the true side of the disordered country, so I should be able to concoct potions within the space of the primordial essence. Now I can test if my previous idea is feasible. Close black lens bracket. Thinking of this, Ning Lu extended his hands and grasped the gilded furnace. With a thought, in the next moment, his body and the furnace vanished together. Ning Lu appeared in a square in the first layer of space. He released his hands, and the furnace stood steadily on the obsidian-like ground. He then returned to the treasury, found 14 kinds of potion materials, totaling 21 pieces, and brought them back to the disordered country. After organizing the materials, Ning Lu found that he had gathered all the ingredients for the warrior potion, and the arbitrator potion was only missing a gavel. Open black lens bracket. Him, Estepinian is an arbitrator, his will do. Close black lens bracket. He then returned to the real world and called Rolslev with his communicator. My lord, there were 2 waves of enemy probes earlier, which were repelled by the Fen family's guards. The nest tower has been cleared, and now only your followers remain. Send up a can of promethium and a rubber spoon. In the disordered country, Ning Lu threw the vulture's chainsword into the furnace. After a series of crackling sounds, he saw a red gelatinous solid remaining in the furnace. After scooping it into a bottle, Ning Lu saw no residue in the furnace, and the gelatinous substance was perfectly integrated, so he knew that the warrior potion had been successfully concocted. He was secretly delighted. Open black lens bracket. Since I can concoct potions in the disordered country, then I have control over the extraordinary system and can select people I trust to cultivate extraordinary individuals. Close black lens bracket. The core of the sequence potion is the extraordinary ability granted by the potion. Only by knowing the formula and gathering the materials can one concoct a potion containing wondrous power, and only by drinking the potion can one acquire extraordinary abilities. Even if Tzeentch obtains the knowledge that comes with drinking the potion, he cannot replicate extraordinary individuals. The sleepless potion given to Bukayo earlier was an example of this. Without drinking the sleepless potion and gaining the extraordinary ability, vigorous energy, even if one knows that one doesn't need to sleep at night and only needs 3 or 4 hours of sleep during the day, it cannot be achieved. Tzeentch can modify a believer's body to make him not need sleep, but that is not an extraordinary ability. Even if Tzeentch obtains and grants his believers the legal knowledge he acquired, without spiritual enhancement and the extraordinary ability, extraordinary oratory, they cannot defeat a top lawyer in the same way he did. Tzeentch can also grant believers abilities like mind manipulation or deception to achieve the same result, but these are also not extraordinary abilities. No matter what knowledge Tzeentch gains from the potion, the abilities he grants to his believers are still the abilities he could originally grant. Extraordinary ability is the core, and the potion formula is the only key to open this door. But Ning Lu still faced a problem. The 4 Chaos Gods could peer into reality and observe his potion concoction process. Although the 4 gods could also bestow blessings, they might also become interested in the potion system. As long as there was a possibility, there was a hidden risk. Now, being able to concoct potions in the disordered country eliminated the only hidden danger. No existence could peer into the world of the disordered country. As for the 3 potions he had concocted before, Lawyer, Barbarian, and Sleepless, Ning Lu didn't care about the first 2 at all, and even expected the 4 Chaos Gods to replicate them. High-sequence extraordinary individuals can exert great influence over extraordinary individuals of their own pathway. Once he advances to sequence 0 inches Black Emperor, possessing the primordial essence, he can even modify potion formulas, add or remove extraordinary abilities from various sequences, and control extraordinary individuals of his own pathway. If the 4 Chaos Gods were to cultivate subordinates for him, Ning Lu would naturally praise them as good people, no, good gods. The only possible loss would be the sleepless potion formula. And as long as Ning Lu controlled Vostonia's satellites, then without Moonstone, even if the 4 Chaos Gods observed the entire process of his concoction, it would be useless. What's more, Sequence 9 extraordinary individuals are ultimately just a starting point, capable of reaching the limits of ordinary mortals in a certain field. The lawyer can quickly turn a legal illiterate into a top lawyer, but that's all. The sleepless is also only slightly stronger than ordinary people in dark environments. Bukayo, utilizing night vision and the amplification of Son of the Night, could kill gang members but could not defeat the Imperial auxiliary army equipped with an augur array. The combat power of Sequence 8 extraordinary individuals is also far inferior to that of an Astartes. After awakening his Gene Seed Primarch memories, the core of Ning Lu's combat system is the Gene Seed Primarch's abilities, and extraordinary abilities will play an increasingly greater role as he advances in sequence. Of course, he would not just randomly pick someone and bestow them with extraordinary power. Potential and loyalty were what he valued most. Ning Lu returned to the real world and immediately decided to call Rolslev, using the experimentally concocted warrior potion to cultivate him into an extraordinary individual. Although Rolslev's potential was not as great as Bukayo's, he was more loyal. Moreover, after an extraordinary individual dies, their extraordinary characteristic will precipitate from their body, which can be used as a main material or to create magical items. Successful recovery means no waste, and it also makes him less worried about betrayal. Chapter 19, Warrior. Inside the palace of Bolslav Nest Tower, amidst the blood-red mist, Rolslev ripped off the bulletproof armor from a corpse, and he instantly grew a size larger. His originally robust physique immediately became muscular. Now, do as I say, control the overflowing power. The warrior potion enhanced the physical body but did not improve the mind-body. Rolslev took 3 times longer than Bukayo to reign in his overflowing power, and 10 times longer to barely grasp the method of meditation. My lord, Rolslev excitedly took a step forward, his uncontrollable superhuman agility causing him to lose balance and lunge straight ahead. To give Rolslev an unforgettable lesson and impress upon him the importance of controlling his power, Ning Lu slightly shifted his body, and the new warrior crashed headfirst into the wall. With a loud bang, the immense force made the wall tremble, and golden stars exploded before Rolslev's eyes. It took him a moment to regain his senses. Ning Lu's voice echoed in his ear, "Master your power." Rolslev pressed a hand to his forehead, feeling that his injuries were not as severe as he had imagined. If it had been before, he probably wouldn't have recovered for several minutes. Open black lens bracket. My master is a god, only a deity can bestow such power upon me, close black lens bracket. He hurried to Ning Lu, kneeling on one knee, his gaze fixed on his master's steel boots. My lord, I will never betray your trust. Ning Lu helped him up, and his majestic voice rang out. I trust you. Tears nearly welled up in Rolslev's eyes, but fortunately, the comms unit's buzzing sound rang out in time. Besides his master, only Bukayo and his newly appointed deputy could contact him. He suppressed his surging emotions. "My lord, please forgive me." Rolslev quickly adjusted, his tone returning to normal. "No matter." After Rolslev connected, his adjutant's anxious voice came through. "My lord, a noble armed force has launched an attack on the defensive line. The Fend are about to collapse." Ning Lu, through the viewing window, saw thousands of enemy troops charging below. He did not turn around, his hands clasped behind his back. "Go, my warrior. Only in battle can you master the power I have bestowed upon you. Remember, decapitate." "Yes, my lord." Rolslev felt trusted once more, and his blood and fighting spirit were instantly ignited. After turning and exiting the palace, he swiftly sped downwards. Open black lens bracket. My speed has increased by more than several times, it's not just the difference between ascending and descending. My speed has improved too much. Close black lens bracket. He saw a corpse in his line of sight, and his intuition immediately confirmed that the armor fit him. Rolslev directly tore off his bulletproof armor with immense strength and put on the new armor, which fit perfectly. Then, he picked up a laser pistol and a chainsword. When he gripped the two weapons, he had a strange feeling, as if they were a part of his body. Information that had previously flooded his mind involuntarily surfaced. Open black lens bracket. Mastery of various weapons and armor. No weapon is unusable. Close black lens bracket. Immediately, his master's words resurfaced in his mind: master your power. As the warrior flew downwards, he swung the weapons in his hands. Rapid forward thrusts, aiming with a backhand grip when turning. When he walked out of the nest tower, Rolslev's eyes were filled with confidence. He had initially mastered the extraordinary ability, physical enhancement. His gaze searched through the enemy ranks, silently repeating, decapitate, in his heart. Rolslev instantly found the red-robed commander in the enemy ranks, a mocking smile on his lips. Open black lens bracket. Yes, you noble commanders always wear the most conspicuous red robes. Close black lens bracket. He knew he couldn't charge into the enemy ranks alone like his master, so he called his direct 100-man squad. "Follow me, kill the enemy commander." "Yes." The gang elites then watched in astonishment as Rolslev, who usually charged forward with them, rushed out first. He raised his hand and fired a shot, the laser beam accurately striking the enemy's eyes 30 meters away. They couldn't help but wonder, open black lens bracket, when did the boss get so fierce? Even with a noble's laser pistol, it's impossible to precisely shoot an enemy's vital points while running. Close black lens bracket. They all fired their newly acquired weapons, then realized that their hit rate had indeed improved, but it was nowhere near as exaggerated as their bosses. Every time Rolslev pulled the trigger, an enemy fell, and he instantly plunged into the enemy ranks. The valiant warrior instantly drew enemy fire, and dozens of enemy weapons targeted him. Rolslev rolled on the ground and took cover behind a discarded defensive structure. Idiots! Attack! His subordinates quickly raised their weapons and attacked. Rolslev rapidly swapped energy cells, and while his subordinates drew fire, he sprinted wildly. The wind howled in his ears, and he raised his left arm, pulling the trigger. Da-da-da! A rapid burst of shots, all hitting enemies. The red-robed commander discovered that his personal guards had been killed in an instant. Open black lens bracket. Where did this fierce man come from? Could it be Thierry Vieira, the bounty hunter who has recently risen to fame? But isn't he active in the Alubo Hive City? Close black lens bracket. The roar of a chainsword sounded in his ear. He had no time to think and raised his hand to fire a shot. Rolslev's eyes had been fixed on him. He immediately ducked to avoid it, then delivered a flying kick to the red-robed commander's arm. With a crisp snap, the noble commander's arm was broken. Open black lens bracket. What immense brute strength. Close black lens bracket. He staggered backward, drew his ornate power sword, and executed a sword form according to the 23rd principle of Osbervaya. Inferior in both strength and agility to his opponent, he naturally had to rely on skill. The essence of this Vostonia combat technique was to find the enemy's weaknesses and seize the opportune moment to disarm their attacks. Above the nest tower, Ning Lu, who was observing the battle, his eyes lit up, and he murmured. A bit interesting. The power sword precisely struck Roslev's sword-wielding right arm. Fortunately, at the last moment, the warrior's right arm moved. The power sword missed, only cutting off the armor on the outside of his arm, not striking his wrist. The red-robed commander was startled. He retracted his sword, preparing to block the attack, but Roslev was faster. The noble commander felt that the chainsword's attack trajectory was somewhat familiar. Before he could identify the opponent's attack, his means were shredded. The red-robed commander was shocked. He had recognized that the plebeian before him was using Osbervaya, a sword art he had painstakingly practiced for many years to master. His eyes widened. How can this be? Roslev did not answer his question, ending the noble commander's life with a single slash. Howard, who had just pushed open the blast door and exited the rapid assault vehicle, happened to witness this scene. Open black lens bracket Malchuk was a skilled swordsman. He made great contributions during Szymanski's nearly 30 years of expansion, slaying countless strong enemies, and yet he was, close black lens bracket. He frowned in thought for a moment before recalling the middle-aged gang member's name. Open black lens bracket Roslev actually killed Malchuk. He was just an unknown lower nest gang member before, how could he be so strong? No, impossible. If he had that ability, he would have ascended to the upper nest long ago. Close black lens bracket. As he pondered, Roslev walked up to him. You're back. How's the situation? Having become a warrior, Roslev's disposition subtly changed. In his heart, only Ning Lu was supreme. Tech priests and nobles would not make him view them differently. Howard paused, feeling slightly uncomfortable, but he didn't pursue it. He smiled. Mission accomplished. You've changed. You're stronger than when you first ascended the tower. This is power bestowed by my lord. Perhaps one day, you too will receive such a blessing. Chapter 20 Howard presents an STC fragment. Howard took a deep breath before entering the palace. The scene he had witnessed earlier and Roslev's words still echoed in his ears. He also recalled the young boy named Bukayo. Ning Lu's image in his heart became increasingly mysterious and powerful. He had already received confirmation from tech priest Rozicki of the Czech family, servants of the Omniscia with whom his family had generations of good relations, that it was impossible for a cyborg created by the Mechanicus to possess such powerful physique and combat strength. Open black lens bracket. Could it truly be the descent of an old night god? Close black lens bracket. He looked at Ning Lu, who had his back to him, and said respectfully. My lord, I have reached an agreement with Wise One Kaminsky. Please review it. Ning Lu snapped out of his sword-fighting simulation and turned to Howard. My lord, the Wise One has agreed to support your ascension as King of Tezvok, and he is willing to bestow the omniscious blessing upon you. He requests that their existing interests be maintained, and furthermore, he asks that you resolve the Xenos problem in the Sea of Melody. After listening to Howard's brief, Ning Lu took the data slate, scrolled through it rapidly, and asked. The Sea of Melody. Precisely, my lord. The Sea of Melody, as its name suggests, is an oceanic nation, dotted with pearl-like archipelagos. It is a beautiful world. As he sincerely praised the Sea of Melody, Ning Lu had already finished reading 1,503 pages of documents. His superhuman brain rapidly processed the information, extracting key points that perfectly matched Howard's summary. He looked at the blonde noble with appreciation. The seafood and a small portion of agricultural products from the Sea of Melody are crucial to Vostonia. Recently, due to the appearance of Xenos pirates, food supplies have been affected, and reserves are rapidly depleting. If this continues, Vostonia will fall into crisis in no more than 3 months. Howard's words were filled with worry. He had already sensed the impending crisis. What kind of Xenos are invading? My lord, there are currently no reports on the Xenos' physiology. It is worth noting that the Xenos' warships are extremely advanced. They can fire a pulse energy beam that ignores the Mechanicus, void shield, directly corroding their hulls. Howard's expression was grim. Previously, he had always thought the Mechanicus was synonymous with technology, but after hearing Tech Priest Rosicki's words not long ago, he realized that even more advanced technology existed. It also has an annoying side effect. After a Mechanicus vessel is hit, its shields immediately overload, yet the enemy warship can follow up with a barrage of lance fire after completing its attack. Ning Lu fell into thought upon hearing this. He immediately connected it to the Night Shard and the Flow mentioned in the previous potion formula. Open black lens bracket. The Xenos, artillery and attack characteristics sound similar to the Flao's ether cannon, close black lens bracket. I accept the Mechanicus conditions. Even if it wasn't related to the potion ingredients, Ning Lu would not allow Xenos to plunder. The Vostonia star system was his territory. But I also have demands. The Xenos' firepower is formidable, I need to board them to defeat them. Therefore, I need weapons and armor suitable for my physique that can unleash my combat power. He was still missing 2 ingredients for the omniscient potion of sequence 9. Low sequence extraordinaries' technical abilities were also inferior to those of the tech priests of Mars. Since he was asked to expel the Xenos, it was natural to take the opportunity to demand equipment. Such a request is reasonable and consistent with the logic of the omniscious followers. Howard pondered for a moment, then, based on his understanding of Wise One Kaminsky, reached a conclusion. Subsequently, a look of determination appeared in his azure eyes. My lord, my family possesses a holy template discovered and copied by an ancestor, which conforms to the sacred standards. Ning Lu knew that standard template constructs were abbreviated as STC, essentially complex analytical processing programs. Various human technologies were preserved in STC systems. Along with warp engines and human mutants, navigators, these 3 were the main factors enabling humanity to expand beyond the solar system and conquer various planets. STCs allowed human colonists to maintain a standard level of technology, enabling them to efficiently build shelters, generators, transportation, and other necessities using any available local materials, even without any relevant knowledge. Users simply had to ask how to build a house or a drilling machine, and the STC would provide all necessary plans. The technology of the future human empire also relied on STCs. The Mechanicus would even launch exploratory crusades in search of the Holy Template. Although the standard template construct obtained by my ancestor is incomplete, the technologies contained within it, such as bioscanners, automated robots, and refractor fields, are all manifestations of the Fend family's favor from the Omniscia. Aside from the Bolslav family, the Fend family is the only family that has stood firm in the Nest Tower since the founding of Tezvok. Now, I present to you a copy of a holy template, the foundation of the Fend family. Ning Lu knew that STCs could exist in various forms, from paper documents and data files to large, complete facilities. Those fortunate enough to unearth STCs usually found incomplete fragments, data corrupted by the ravages of time and other reasons. They would replicate and copy them for longer preservation. Howard was now presenting a copied backup, and even a backup would be worth tens of billions of Mars coin. After Howard finished speaking, he pressed firmly on the golden lightning of his family crest on his right chest. The left chest of his artifice power armor sprang open. He reached in and took out an adamantium casket. Through its glass casing, a delicate rectangular thin plate could be seen inside, its surface covered with intricate metallic circuits and tiny electronic components. He respectfully presented it into Ning Lu's large hands with both of his own, then humbly retreated. You are responsible for communicating with the Mechanicus and those nobles who can be brought under control, and for determining the time of the ceremony. Additionally, confirm with your subordinates the families that just attacked the Nest Tower, as well as those staunch loyalists of Bolslav. I want to see the list within 1 standard hour. As you wish, my lord. Howard exited the palace. Not having received a boon, he felt a bit dejected, but quickly cheered up. Open black lens bracket. I have only been under my lord's command for less than 1 work cycle. Even if I offer a family secret, there will always be a probationary period. From now on, I must perfectly complete every task my lord assigns me to quickly gain his favor. Close black lens bracket. At the same time, Ning Lu opened his communicator and switched to the channel with Bukayo. Bukayo, how is the Hive City? My lord, all shops in the Hive City's commercial district are closed, factories are shut down, and everywhere is heavily armed. There have been no large-scale skirmishes between the various factions. According to my estimation, the major families will likely be more cautious, first sending out intelligence personnel to ascertain the situation of the force that captured the Bolslov family. Most importantly, they will observe the Mechanicus reaction. Only a few fools who think they've found an opportunity, and factions loyal to the Bolslov family, will launch attacks against us. Upon hearing this, Ning Lu's thoughts aligned with his and Howard's predictions. He immediately issued new orders to Bukayo. End your reconnaissance. Proceed to the arbitration court. I want you to bring back all the gavels, each marked with the original owner's name and position. Understood, my lord. Bukayo didn't know why Ning Lu wanted the gavels, but he knew he shouldn't pry into the secrets of serving a deity, so he didn't voice his doubts. Chapter 21. Bukayo's Wisdom. An hour before Curie time, 23 families of Tezvok Hive gathered at the Nest Tower, 5 of which owned the Nest Tower. A man with jaw and vocal cord implants, dressed in a red robe embroidered with gold trim, asked a woman in a red dress with an ornate decorative implant on her forehead, standing in front of him, with concern. Lord Earl Yelena, do you know the background of this new king? During the Baniband, many families were raided, blood stained the Hive City, and even the 1,000-year-old Heminsky family Nest Tower was captured. Is this not a trap? Kozabal, do not let fear dominate your brain. Yelena smiled, her tone resolute. According to surveillance footage, this new king is powerful, but his numbers are too few. His armed forces are less than 2,000, and even with the workers pouring into the Hive City, the total number is less than 100,000. It is impossible for him to control the entire Hive City. She looked at the fully armed gang members standing around, glaring fiercely at everyone, and whispered. Moreover, his subordinates might be good enforcers, or even qualified warriors, but they are not qualified managers. Using the crude methods of the lower nest against the workers of the upper nest will only cause unrest. As long as this new king is not a madman, he will use his existing strength to stabilize the situation and quickly restore Tezvok's production capacity, and only then will he gain the support of the omniscient servants. And tonight's coronation ceremony, issued to us by the new Fend family head in the name of Wise One Kaminsky, indicates that he has already reached cooperation with the servants of Mars. Yelena's deep blue eyes stared at the Baron of the Skorupsi family. Although he lacked political wisdom, his family's coal and ore mining industries were crucial to the Kurnikova family and could not be lost. Kozabal, no matter what kind of person the new king is, you will follow me and immediately pledge your loyalty to him. He is in need of subordinates right now, and those who pledge allegiance first will gain greater benefits, do you understand? As you command, Lord Earl. Kozabal said with conviction, standing reassured behind Yelena. Half an hour into Curie time, Howard Fend returned from the Mechanicus Nest Tower, Vostonia Altar 25. He reported to Ning Lu that Wise One Kaminsky had agreed to forge equipment for Ning Lu, and then he came to the hall to handle inquiries from the various family heads. Ning Lu took the box of gavels offered by Bukayo, glanced at them, and placed them on the industrial metal-style long table behind him. He operated the data pad, brought up Vostonia's strategic map, and posed a question to the blonde youth. Bukayo, I want to conquer Vostonia, what do you think should be the next target? My lord, please allow me a moment to think. Bukayo did not answer immediately, he cautiously requested a moment, staring at the strategic map, his mind racing. 5 minutes later, the youth finally spoke. My lord, I believe it is Lukbo Hive City. Why Lukbo? Mazov and Stettin are closer. My lord, I am interpreting your mode of action, going directly for Lukbo is more in line with your style. Ning Lu nodded slightly and said with a smile. Elaborate. In your first work cycle in Handman C, you made 2 gangs submit. In the second work cycle, you seized the foundry. After that, you did not capture other small factories, but directly seized the largest magneto steel plant in the dome, and then quickly annexed other factories by controlling it. After you controlled the Handman C dome, you did not conquer other domes, but directly led your team to attack and occupy the Bolslov family's nest tower, which controlled Tezvok. My lord, I believe your strategy is to directly target core key nodes, and then resolve other nodes one by one. Ning Lu listened to Bukayo systematically summarize his actions and articulate his philosophy, and he looked at Bukayo with approval. The blonde youth was indeed very accurate. However, he had not guessed, nor had he even thought himself, that taking the barbarian potion would trigger genetic awakening, which changed his idea of accumulating enough strength before attacking the upper nest. Why is Lukbo a key node? My lord, whether it is Tezvok, Mazov, or Szczecin, they are all too far from Vostonia's center of power. The Mechanicus's Vostonia altar 1 is the center of power, and Lukbo's altar is the closest core altar to Tezvok. It is the location of altar 3. If you control the hive city where that shrine is located, you will make the Mechanicus seriously consider your goal. Bukayo shrugged, saying with a touch of self-deprecation. It is not just the altar. The Muska people and the Magdan people living in Mazov and Szczecin have never been the cultural mainstream of the Vostonia people. The Sosvorid people of Lukbo are. Just like our distant homeland, the holy city of Warsaw on Terra and. He wanted to say the name of a peripheral city, but the Arshavin family's ancient texts contained little information about Terra. Warsaw was the only place name he knew. It was the Vostonia people's homeland, holy city, and place of origin. Well, it is like the difference between a central city like the Holy City and a border city. Bukayo said devoutly and with conviction, I believe that after you conquer Lukbo, those wise ones will recognize a fact. You will become the Lord of Vostonia, and they should support you. Excellent. Ning Lu said admiringly. Bukayo had guessed his thoughts from his actions. The sleepless did not enhance his wisdom, yet his wisdom far surpassed Rolslev's. Although the emperor defined him as a butcher's knife, he did not believe, like Kurz, that slaughter and fear could shape a bright future for Vostonia. To conquer Vostonia, he must consider how to define the role of the Mechanicus. If it were defined as an enemy, then it could be said that Vostonia, where the Mechanicus had immense influence, would be an enemy to the entire world, even if countless people in the lower nest believed in the god of all machines. He would not turn this developed industrial world into ruins and then rebuild it. That would be no different from colonizing a world polluted with countless industrial ruins. Forcing the Mechanicus to cooperate with him, using their technology for expansion, and simultaneously cultivating extraordinary individuals and subordinates, gradually reforming Vostonia, was his strategy. Open black lens bracket. Perhaps this is why the disordered country chose me and made me follow the Black Emperor path. Using rules and resources for development, and then establishing a new order, that is my development philosophy. Close black lens bracket. Ning Lu looked at Bukayo. I have a task for you. My lord, please instruct. After the ceremony, you will take the equipment Howard has prepared for you and go to Lukbo to scout for intelligence. As you wish, my lord. Ning Lu's communicator rang. After he answered, Howard's hushed voice came through the communication channel. My lord, Kaminsky has arrived at the ceremony hall. There is 1 standard minute until your coronation ceremony. Chapter 22, I crown myself. With 11 standard seconds until the coronation ceremony, Ning Lu entered the ceremonial hall. Many nobles held their breath. The approaching giant was even more oppressive than he appeared in the surveillance videos. Kozabal and most others secretly thought, could it be a deity from the old knight myth descending? Someone thought of the god of war, Sventovit, but the giant did not have 4 heads and 4 faces. Others thought of Perrin, the god of thunder, but the giant did not have a copper head. Yelena and some other nobles frowned, glancing at wise one Kaminsky out of the corner of their eyes. Could it be a Mechanicus cyborg? Are they unwilling to accept the Duumvirate and are directly overturning the table to unify Tezvok? A torrent of 0s and 1s surged across Kaminsky's bionic eye, so fast that it emitted a faint crackling sound. Subsequently, the conclusive scan results appeared in binary code, while the built-in translator automatically translated the tech language into Vostonia Low Gothic according to a preset program. Threat level: lethal threat. Physiological structure: unresolvable. The Wise One realized that the giant before him exceeded the scope of his scanning and analysis capabilities. But he did not stop. He forced the scanning module to continue working until a wisp of black smoke rose, forcing him to stop, and the two mechanical tentacles on his back reached forward. After an instant of electrical sparks, Kaminsky's scanning module returned to normal, and he turned his head away, unwilling to give up. Howard Fend, in a red and gold-trimmed luxurious robe, spoke loudly to the crowd. "Gentlemen, ladies, today we gather to witness the dawn of a new era. Gentlemen, the Boleslav family has long been immoral. They have openly seized and secretly harmed the industries of various families. Boleslav King is a hive giant rat clinging to Tezvok, despicable and greedy." The golden-haired earl's words ignited everyone's anger. Every family had suffered losses to varying degrees. Fortunately, a noble person descended from the heavens, Ning Lu, came to Tezvok, and he overthrew Boleslav King's tyrannical rule. The servant of the Omniscia also saw the light of the god of all machines shining upon him. "Now, let us invite Wise One Kaminsky to crown the new king." Kaminsky's lower two mechanical tentacles lifted the crown, the upper pair of tentacles took it, held it high, and then he stepped towards Ning Lu. Red and green lights flashed on the Wise One's filter screen. Reason fiercely contended with the instinct to explore mysteries. The distance of 121 meters felt like 10 kilometers to Kaminsky. He came before Ning Lu, and just as he was about to tell him to bow his head and recite the sacred words of the ceremony, Ning Lu directly reached out, took the golden crown, and placed it on his own head. His throne was not bestowed by the Mechanicus but was the fruit of his own conquest. Everyone was stunned. This did not conform to tradition. Kaminsky's filter screen flashed red frantically, and his sound array synthesizer emitted a tremolo. Ning Lu, crown, program. This time, the Wise One did not enter repair mode, but the overheated logical computation module could not complete the calculation for a while. "Wise One Kaminsky, you can't reach my head. It's more fitting for me to wear my own crown." The nobles remained silent. In such an occasion, every action carried special political significance. The new king's action was not merely a matter of height difference, as he claimed, but had special political implications. They all looked at the two upright, double-headed scepters on the crown, and the same thought involuntarily arose in their minds. It seems that this King Ning Lu does not believe the royal family and the Mechanicus are two heads standing side by side. So, what are Kaminsky's thoughts? Many nobles held their breath, their palms sweating, wondering if another great battle was about to erupt. Even Yelena, who had been so certain before, couldn't help but doubt her judgment. Was the new king a madman, wanting to go to war with the Mechanicus? Everyone turned their gaze to the Wise One, watching how he would react. Kaminsky remained silent for several seconds. Everyone except Ning Lu felt the time drag on endlessly. Finally, the sound array synthesizer spoke. "The Omniscia bless you, Ning Lu." The Wise One did not recite the coronation holy words written by Kivir the Wise, as he had in every previous ceremony, but he acknowledged Ning Lu as the new king. Ning Lu remained calm and composed. Kaminsky was indeed as he had imagined. Programs were important, but political rituals like this were not as important as efficiency and industrial output. The Wise One realized that his combat power exceeded the scope of his calculations, and he hoped that his powerful combat power would solve the Vostonia crisis. The Oilers would not choose war for political tradition. In his computational logic, ensuring efficiency and industrial output was far more important than political tradition. Accepting his tradition-breaking transgression was the inevitable result of his logical computation. Ning Lu would cooperate with the Mechanicus, but he had to be in charge. If he couldn't be in charge, then there was no need for cooperation, he would turn it into ruins and rebuild. Today was just the beginning. As his strength grew, he would reshape Vostonia's order according to his own ideas. Howard breathed a sigh of relief. If war broke out, no one but him would stand by Ning Lu's side. To avoid any further mishaps, he loudly declared, "The new king has ascended to the throne, why do you not pledge your loyalty?" With that, he was the first to kneel on one knee and, according to Muscat tradition, loudly declared, "I, Howard Fend, pledge my loyalty to my king Ning Lu. Whatever my king commands, I shall obey, I shall fulfill." Yelena, having been preempted, quickly knelt on one knee. "I, Yelena Kurnikova, pledge my loyalty to my king Ning Lu. Whatever my king commands, I shall obey, I shall fulfill." Kozabal and others also reacted and quickly pledged their loyalty to the new king. Ning Lu scanned the crowd. "I accept your fealty." After the others stood up, he spoke to Howard, who was still kneeling. "Howard Fend, I hereby bestow upon you the title of Earl, in recognition of your loyalty and contributions." Ning Lu once again broke Muscat tradition. Titles should be bestowed in his nest tower, not in a noble's residence. For the others, your titles remain unchanged, your industries and factories resume operation immediately. Upon hearing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief and respectfully accepted the command. "Yes, my king. Howard, you stay, everyone else, execute immediately." Kaminsky walked up to Ning Lu. "Next White Nibbin, Tech Priest Rozicki will communicate with you regarding weapon and armor design proposals. Please, according to the agreement, restore all Upper Nest factories to operation within 5 work cycles. I will fulfill my promise." After everyone left, Howard told Bukayo to find the butler to retrieve the prepared equipment, then came to the palace. Rolslav will take over the original Bolslav family's industries. For the industries of other families, you must come up with an industrial distribution plan within 1 stellar hour. "Yes, my king." Howard understood that although Ning Lu entrusted him with the industries of the other fallen families, he could not distribute them arbitrarily, nor could he seek personal gain by allocating the most profitable industries to the Fend family. To earn Ning Lu's trust, he had to distribute them according to industrial relevance and the principle of maximizing efficiency. Chapter 23, Ning Lu's Request. 1 standard hour later, Ning Lu returned to hear Howard's allocation plan. "My king, among all the factories to be allocated, the Heminsky family's pharmaceutical industry is the largest in scale. The Kurnikova family's industry is in the chemical sector, and previously also involved pharmaceuticals, with an average annual output of about 52,000 units. Considering the industry relevance and integration time, the Heminsky family's industry should be handed over to the Kurnikova family." Ning Lu nodded in satisfaction after listening to the allocation plan. "Very good, proceed according to your allocation plan. Immediately send messages to all the families. You are a true arbitrator. Return to see me in 1 standard hour." "Arbitrator?" Howard asked, confused. "Wasn't that the title for a manager of the Lower Nest Dome?" "You'll know soon." "Yes, my king." After Howard excused himself, he descended to the 12th floor, entered the palace chancellor's office, and opened the communicator. "Count Howard, I am carrying out my king's orders." "What are his instructions?" "Count Yelena, congratulations, my king has decided to entrust you with the Heminsky pharmaceutical industry. Please send someone to take over immediately." Howard controlled his envy, speaking in his usual tone. "Really?" Yelena's excited voice rang out through the communication channel. "Of course, it's true." Howard understood her astonishment. Every noble knew that relying solely on the Hantman Dome's workers to take over the vast industry of the Bolslav family was already the limit. But overcoming the human weakness of greed was another matter. The former king couldn't do it, his greed was endless. "Praise my king. My king is wise." Afterward, Howard continuously heard praises for Ning Lu from nobles of various families. Open black lens bracket My king has won the hearts of the people and established a firm foothold in Tezvok. Of course, the most crucial factor is the power he possesses, close black lens bracket. His deep blue eyes were filled with longing. Just as he was lost in thought, the beeping of a timer sounded, and he immediately straightened his luxurious robes and hurried towards the palace. Meanwhile, in the disordered country, Ning Lu cast a gavel into the furnace. Golden light bloomed, the furnace crackled, and a golden, jelly-like potion slowly formed. He scooped up the arbitrator potion, making Howard walk the judge path, not just because the potion materials currently at hand could only concoct this potion. It was also because while Howard's loyalty met Ning Lu's minimum requirements, it was not yet as strong as Bukayo's and Rolslev's. The judge path is an adjacent path to the Black Emperor path. Some paths can be converted relatively safely in the middle, as they all belong to the same source substance. The disordered country corresponds to the Black Emperor and judge. With the source substance, he will, upon activating his authority, exert significant influence over extraordinary beings on the judge path. Both the Black Emperor and judge were extraordinary beings that can be controlled after advancing to Old One. Returning to the real world, Ning Lu walked up to Howard and extended his palm. "Drink it." Howard looked at the golden, jelly-like potion in the bottle before him, a hint of fear flashing in his eyes. "Open black lens bracket poison. Impossible. If my king wanted to kill me, it would be like crushing an ant." Could it be? Is it the boon Rolslev spoke of, close black lens bracket? Knowing he had no choice, Howard immediately took the potion, gritted his teeth, and tilted his head back to drink it. After teaching Howard the meditation method and how to contain the overflowing power of the potion, Ning Lu instructed. "That's it. If you meditate regularly from now on and serve well as an arbitrator, you will be able to control the power I have bestowed upon you." Only then did Howard understand the meaning of the boon. Only a being as great as the Omniscient could bestow power upon him in such a miraculous way. He looked at Ning Lu excitedly. "Yes, my lord. The Vostonia arbitration system is good, it balances the nobles and the mechanicus, but it's not perfect enough." "My lord, what do you mean?" If Ning Lu wanted to be a dictator, Howard had no doubt he could achieve it. Current arbitration is about balance, true arbitration is the guardian of order. Seeing Howard's dawning comprehension, Ning Lu continued. "Mars's technology has flowed into Vostonia, and this world has rapidly industrialized. But what about the people in the lower nest, or even the bottom nest? They never see hope in their lives. They live in a daze, fighting over a meal, killing, betraying. I think you should see the power contained within the lower nest people from my path to rise." Howard suddenly understood, his azure eyes sparkling. "You mean, once the lower nest people see hope, they will burst with initiative, work hard, increase production efficiency, and thus boost capacity." "Exactly, but it's more than that. You will understand in the future." Chaos was still unknown to the Vostonia people, so Ning Lu did not explicitly state it. He thought of what another gene seed Primarch, Robert Gilliman, would say to Dante more than 10,000 years later, after he awoke. As Gilliman said, only by providing people with better living conditions can a clear dividing line be drawn between loyalty and betrayal, and only then will they understand what they are truly fighting for. Through his own experience, Ning Lu understood the significance of a meal to the lower nest people. He also truly understood the question Gilliman posed to Dante. When a great enemy attacks, what reason does a person in a cruel hell have to refuse temptation? The uneducated common people, even if they personally listened to the grand principles preached by the imperial cult priests, would not accept them. They only knew the oldest, most basic truth: if you don't eat, you die. Whoever feeds them is their god. Since the Black Emperor wants to establish his own order, it will start now. He cannot change the entire human race, but he can start by changing his homeland. Ning Lu wanted to build a prosperous world with immense development potential. This was the initial version of his kingdom. "I want you to go to the Hadman-C Dome, use the original equipment there in my previous system, to establish a completely new dome. I will assign you a team of workers. You can draw upon my previous system, or recruit people from surrounding domes. I hope you learn how to be an arbitrator, and how to establish a new order." Ning Lu emphasized, "The order I want is not for you to give handouts to the lower classes, but to provide them with a system where, through effort and contribution, they can eat their fill and live like human beings. This system can be applied to every hive city, every lower nest, every dome." Howard's brow furrowed at this. If Ning Lu asked to build a developed dome, it would be easy with the Fender family's financial resources. But Ning Lu's request for the entire Vostonia was something that even all the nobles in Tezvok Upper Nest couldn't achieve if they went bankrupt, let alone that other families wouldn't agree. Seeing Howard lost in thought, Ning Lu decided to broaden his perspective. "Don't be constrained by the Mechanicus's ideals. Technology is just a tool. I want you to establish a completely new order. You can set a qualified standard. Workers who meet the targets receive a standard share, and excellent ones can go to work in the upper nest. New factories can be built in the upper nest, or it can even become a middle nest. Nest towers can be dismantled to build new upper nests, and new nest towers can be built on top of those." Howard's mind cleared, and he said confidently, "As you wish, my lord. Make good use of the abilities I have given you." Upon hearing this, Howard's deep blue eyes sparkled, and he said with full confidence, "I will not disappoint you. Now, take me to your family's treasury. My lord, please follow me." Chapter 24, Forming the Vostonia 1st Regiment. "My lord, the entire treasury belongs to you," Howard said piously. He had just observed the world using the psychic vision taught by Ning Lu, and even this most ordinary technique made him realize the power of the extraordinary. Psychic vision can grasp the emotions of the person being spoken to, which is a practical skill for nobles, allowing them to gain maximum benefit in negotiations. "No need. You should first do well as an arbitrator." Ning Lu saw Howard's desire for more power and admonished the blonde noble. "Send what I have chosen to the palace." Ning Lu did not pause for a moment, pointing out 12 types and 19 pieces of alchemical materials, including the siren stone he had seen before. He also selected 11 additional non-alchemical materials, mixing them in. "My lord, I will immediately send someone to your palace." On the way back, Ning Lu sent a message to Rolslev, instructing him to come to the palace for a briefing. Upon returning to the palace, Ning Lu immediately sorted the alchemical materials he had on hand. He had enough for a sailor and another warrior potion. Aside from that, the witch potion was still missing one main ingredient, called a thousand-legged snake, which is actually a mutated venomous centipede that can grow up to 2 meters long, active in the lower nest. Since there were no suitable candidates, Ning Lu was not in a hurry to concoct the potions. Afterward, he received Rolslev. Rolslev, giving his first formal briefing, was a little nervous. He took a deep breath. "My king, our brothers under my command suffered a total of 214 casualties in the previous attack on the Nest Tower, the subsequent defensive battle, and the clearing of rebels. Currently, 1,053 people can continue fighting, most of whom were rebuilding the Nest Tower's defenses, with 370 guarding your 58 factories. Additionally, there are 106 wounded, who survived but have missing parts." Rolslev completed the first part of the casualty report, comparing it with the data on the data pad. As he organized this report, when he saw the numbers, he realized what a glorious victory it was. With only over 200 casualties, they had captured the entire hive city. This was a glorious victory that only Ning Lu could create, a poem passed down in the myths of the old knight. "I will pay tech priest Rozicki to replace their prosthetics. Afterward, you will ask for their opinions, whether to continue serving in the Vostonia 1st Regiment, or to choose a home in the upper nest houses of the annihilated families." "As you command, my king." Rolslev assented, a hint of longing in his eyes, and then heard Ning Lu's appointment. "You will serve as the regiment commander of the 1st Regiment." Ning Lu recalled the future Imperial Guards organization, 10 people per squad, with 1 squad leader, 2 to 5 squads per platoon, with 1 platoon commander, 2 to 6 platoons per company, with 1 company commander, 5 to 10 companies per regiment, with 1 regiment commander. He adjusted based on the current situation, 10 people per squad, with a squad leader, 5 squads per platoon, 5 platoons per company, and 10 companies per regiment. For the vacant positions, you will recruit in the upper nest. Once the regiment is formed, you will serve as the regiment commander. Rolesliv barely kept up with Ning Lu's speaking speed, taking shorthand notes of the regiment's organization. Many words he couldn't write, so he used letters only he could understand. When he heard that he was to be the regiment commander, his hand slipped, and the page slid to the next one. Besides forming the regiment, you also need to replace and teach the soldiers how to use their weapons and equipment, and pay attention to fire coordination. Rolesliv came back to his senses. This was not difficult for him, a warrior. For training subjects, you can consult the guard commander of the Fend, and adjust as appropriate. Ning Lu thought of conquering the Sea of Melody after leaving Vostonia, and also how the sailor potion would only be most effective in an ocean world, so he continued. Additionally, add swimming training. Go to the people of the Water Guild and ask them to cooperate with you. Your regiment will go to battle in the ocean world in the future, that is the purpose of the training. You also need to pay attention to those in your regiment who perform exceptionally well. I will evaluate them in future battles. Drinking the sailor potion grants the extraordinary ability of aquatic adaptation. Whether one could swim before is not important, potential and loyalty are key. As you command, my king. After jotting down the key points one by one, Rolesliv continued his report. The workers of the Handman Sea Dome have all ascended to the dome. They have moved into various factories and are diligently learning to operate complex tools under the guidance of the original workers. Only the factory owners were collateral relatives of Bolslov, they have all been executed. The foremen of each team, upon learning that you have the support of Wise One Kaminsky, have all expressed their willingness to serve you. Currently, all factories have resumed operation and can fully recover within 3 Curie time. Ning Lu nodded slightly. Do we have any technicians among our people who can analyze standard construction templates? My king, people in the lower nest who know 100 words are already considered scholars. We tinker with those weapons based on experience. People like Bukayo are fugitives from the upper nest, but true technical talents are resources of the nobles and cannot possibly end up in the lower nest. Add one more subject to your training, learning. Go find Howard. Rolesliv responded weakly, as you command. His gaze caught a slight change in Ning Lu's expression, and he immediately perked up. As you command, my king. Go. After Rolesliv retired, Ning Lu pondered to himself. Open black lens bracket even STC fragments cannot be used immediately. I need a technical talent. If I can't find one, I'll have to cultivate one myself. The omniscient is still missing 2 alchemical materials. What's missing is not just a technical talent, but also various internal management talents. Some of those nobles could certainly be competent, they should also be racking their brains, trying to get positions. Close black lens bracket. After a brief rest, Ning Lu met Rozicki in the Curie time. The young tech priest's face was sharply contoured, still retaining some human features. Having been reminded, he wisely suppressed his curiosity about Ning Lu's physical body. King Ning Lu, Rozicki greets you. He held a data pad in his lower pair of mechanical prosthetics and asked. What type of weapon would you like to use? Ning Lu's current digestion progress was past halfway. Since he still needed to play the barbarian, and attacking other nest towers also required breaking down doors, he decided to temporarily use heavy weapons. Heavy halberd. I hope to get the weapon and armor as soon as possible, preferably within 8 Curie time. As transitional weaponry, Ning Lu did not make too many demands, speed was what he valued. I will do my best, but please cooperate. There are some technical parameters that must be decided by you. What is the ratio of your weapon to your height? Rozicki was meticulous, continuing to question Ning Lu. During the Curie time, Ning Lu sat at the metal desk and chair, collectively crafted by the Handman Sea Dome artisans and delivered by Rolesliv, handling official business. Open black lens bracket Hive City Guard reconstruction plan close black lens bracket. During the capture of the Hive City, less than 1/10 of the guard force that intercepted Ning Lu remained. His subordinates guarding the nest tower and factories were still insufficient. Currently, the duties of the guard force are temporarily handled by the Fen family guards, but this is not a long-term solution. The report in Ning Lu's hand was a plan submitted by the Fen family guard captain after consulting the guards, but it was too conventional. Recruiting manpower and having the remaining dozens of surviving guards lead new recruits would take too long. Just then, the communicator rang. "My king, Countess Yelena of the Kurnikova family requests an audience." "Let her in." Chapter 25. Yelena's political ambition. Please keep reading. Ning Lu looked up and out of the palace. Besides Yelena, who was walking in front, there were 6 other presences. These 6 individuals were professionally trained and skilled at concealment, making them difficult for ordinary people to detect, but their presence was remarkably clear to the Genseed Primarch. The 7 soon arrived outside the palace, and Yelena spoke. "I will go to audience with my king. You all wait outside for my summons before entering." The countess, dressed in a long red gown, stepped into the palace and bowed deeply. "My king." "Yelena, what is your business?" "My king, my purpose in seeking audience is, firstly, to express my sincere gratitude. You have entrusted the Shemaisky family's pharmaceutical industry to the Kurnikova family, and I will certainly not disappoint you." Ning Lu leaned back, his gaze scrutinizing Yelena. "Then I shall wait and see. I hope you can bring me a surprise." "And what else?" "My king, forgive my directness, but while your subordinates possess formidable combat prowess, their origins and environment limit their effectiveness, at least in the short term, in governing Tezvok." Flames burned in Yelena's eyes, and she smiled confidently. "I believe you should establish a cabinet, and I am confident that I can play a crucial role within it." "Oh." Ning Lu was noncommittal, tapping his finger lightly on the table, producing a thudding sound that echoed in the countess's ears like the great bell of the Omniscia. After 3 long seconds, he pushed a data slate forward. "Present your solution." Yelena reined in her smile, walked to the table, and seriously faced the test. Her expression gradually shifted from stern to relaxed. "My king, I have a method to quickly rebuild the security forces. I imagine you wish to rebuild the security forces as soon as possible, which requires a capable person to share your burden. I happen to have such a person by my side. The Kurnikova family is a family composed of sisters. My husband, Baron Buksa, served the Omniscia before joining and acted as an independent arbiter in the dome jointly controlled by Skorupski and the Mechanicus." Yelena took out a data slate. Her criteria for choosing a spouse were capable individuals from minor noble families, and she had conducted thorough background checks on every candidate. Now was the time to use that information. "Please allow me to present his file to you." The countess combined the data with her detailed introduction, finally concluding. During Buksa's tenure, he recruited, established, and developed his own arbitration hall. After joining the Kurnikova family, he also adjusted the family's guard systems and other regulations. In the 52 years since the implementation of these systems, no losses have been incurred, including those at the Lower Nest factory. Send him a message immediately. I want to see his report before the night Kyle shift. Yelena did not dare to delay, immediately contacting her husband. After ending the communication, she continued to wait for Ning Lu's instructions. "Since you claim to be capable of forming a cabinet, state your ideas." "My king, for thousands of years, due to Boleslav's greedy appropriation of family assets and the Muska people's indifference and conservative cultural traditions, each family has developed independently. Each family's strategy has been to protect its own industries, not daring to expand them. If we can deepen cooperation, the integration of Tezvok's resources will greatly improve efficiency, as proven by the cooperation between the Kurnikova family and the Skorupski family." The countess meticulously laid out her pre-prepared points, clearly having given this deep thought. Firstly, communication barriers should be broken down through events like exchange banquets. Next is to set an example. The Kurnikova family and the Fen family can take the lead in establishing cooperative relationships. Once profits are gained, the actual results can be used to demonstrate to other families, and their perspectives will then shift, ensuring they do not miss out on such excellent opportunities. Ning Lu occasionally questioned Yelena, and the Countess answered each one. 2 Terra hours later, Ning Lu nodded in satisfaction. You shall lead the formation of the cabinet. Thank you for your trust. I will not disappoint you. Yelena said excitedly. She had once proposed the same suggestion to the false King Bolslav, but that greedy pig showed no interest. Now, she finally had the chance to realize her political ambitions, and the Kurnikova family could, through this reform, truly become a crucial family in Tezvok, not just a young and wealthy one. Just as her heart surged with emotion, she heard Ning Lu ask, "Are the 6 people outside yours?" Yelena was stunned for a moment. The 6 people she brought were elite assassins she had trained from a young age using genetic technology and potions. Even together, they might not be a match for the giant in front of her, but after their modifications, each of them was light-footed, their footsteps no louder than a prized curl-eared cat, and their breathing was so faint it was almost imperceptible. The distance from here to the door, past the antechamber for audiences, the attached lounge, and the servants' tea room, meant the new king should not have heard her when she spoke earlier. Open black lens bracket. If they were to face the new king, their only chance would be to rely on their stealth abilities for a sneak attack. Now that they had been discovered by the new king, they had no chance. Fortunately, I had no unrealistic ideas. Close black lens bracket. The Countess was shocked. She took a deep breath, once again raising her assessment of the new king's combat power. My king, they are all assassins I have meticulously trained. They will become the sharp blades in your hand, slaying those who are disloyal. Let them in. Yelena immediately switched communication channels and issued the order. Maria, bring them in. A moment later, 6 women dressed in black jumpsuits, each carrying different weapons, walked in. Some carried laser-long rifles, others had shields and swords. The 6 instinctively looked at the giant, who was still taller than them even while sitting, with the gaze of hunters sizing up their prey. Immediately, they met Ning Lu's dark, profound eyes, and the 6 assassins instantly felt a chill down their spines. 5 of them immediately lowered their heads. Only the blonde woman in the center, with a high nose bridge, bit her lips tightly, stubbornly persisting. After scanning everyone, Ning Lu immediately spoke. You will depart immediately for Mazov and Szczecin for assassinations. The targets are the commanders and nobles of the 2 hive cities. You may choose the specific targets yourselves. You will return and report after 23 work cycles. After deciding to conquer Lukpao, Ning Lu then planned to take Mazov and Szczecin, connecting the 4 hive cities into one contiguous area. Sending them was both a test of their strength and a means of weakening the enemy. Yelena was momentarily stunned. My king, Tezvok is just the beginning. Open black lens bracket. Mazov and Szczecin are not powerful hive cities like Lukpao, their strength is similar to Tezvok. With the new king's combat power, they can indeed be conquered. Close black lens bracket. During the night Kyle shift, Buxa arrived in a hurry. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.